300 years ago, the land of Joseon was ravaged by one of the Great Wars, a devastating conflict pitting humans against monsters. During that time of intense struggle, a single individual emerged who ultimately saved the world. Because of his actions during the war, people came to know him as Meokwaisa, the monster hunter. 3 long centuries later, the road finally fell silent. The stillness was shattered when a pitiful older woman, burdened by a truly hefty load, appeared. Then Meokwaisa, a solitary figure with an utterly forgettable face, stepped out. This plain man approached the struggling woman and offered to ease her desperate burden. A grateful smile instantly spread across the older woman's face. She regarded his offer as nothing less than a miracle. Perhaps the road hadn't been so silent after all if it delivered angels. Meokwaisa simply told her to pass the heavy bag over, and she thanked him once more. Then she made the critical error of mistaking him for a pastor. He immediately corrected her, clarifying that he was a priest. Nonetheless, the older woman pointed up the long climb to Meokwaisa. She even had the sheer nerve to claim the bag was just a little heavy. She added that they would reach her grandson's house after only a bit of effort. Meokwaisa laughed a strained laugh since the visible distance stunned him. He observed that her grandson had chosen a lovely isolated spot and commented to the woman that his journey was fast becoming quite a workout. With each upward step, the older woman continued to express her gratitude, still addressing him as pastor. Meokwaisa wondered if her selective hearing was a chronic condition, but he gently continued to correct her, clarifying his priestly calling. Finally, Meokwaisa put down the bag. He looked utterly exhausted from the effort. He then asked the older woman if they could stop there, pointing out that he could not possibly take her all the way to the doorstep. The older woman smiled kindly and assured him it was fine. Her grandson had promised to come down and pick her up from that exact spot. She sincerely told him that not encountering him would have caused her big trouble, though based on the climb, the problem seemed to be his. Then she apologized for not giving him much and offered him a cold drink as a token of her immense gratitude. Upon handing the drink to Meokwaisa, she suggested he must be very thirsty. Meokwaisa immediately accepted the drink. Confused, he then asked the older woman why she gave him the drink, insisting she save it for her grandson instead. Nonetheless, Meokwaisa took the drink, finished it quickly, and thanked her. Suddenly, the older woman's Asian pride revealed a fact. Her grandson was a doctor, a genuine professional doctor. Meokwaisa registered his initial amazement, then asked her why she had mentioned it to him so randomly. The older woman's expression grew somber as she recounted her grandson's history as a genius who had learned the Korean alphabet at the age of 3. She lamented that he eventually met the wrong friends and became completely ruined and miserable. She explained that he earned pity because his weak character made it impossible for him to refuse bad company. At that moment, Meokwaisa felt a surge of cold unease, realizing that this heavy conversation, like the bag, signaled something bad. Regardless, he calmly told her that her grandson's situation was unfortunate, pointing out that everyone needed to choose good friends, though his own voice faded as he was slowly fainting. The older woman then confessed the real problem: because of his weak character, her grandson drowned in debt. The older woman expressed her confusion about what to do and earnestly asked Meokwaisa for his help, blissfully unaware of the collapsing clergyman beside her. Unfortunately, just as the older woman registered her plea, Meokwaisa collapsed and immediately lost consciousness. The older woman looked down at him, utterly unbothered, and justified her actions by claiming that as a priest, he was doing a good thing by saving many people's lives. She chuckled then, her face twisted with an almost demonic cheer, and claimed that even God surely approved of her actions. Not far off, an array of glinting tools lay poised, silently awaiting their moment for an imminent operation. Meokwaisa remained lost in a state of unconsciousness. Beside the older woman, a man who seemed to be her grandson contemplated loudly, questioning his granny's choice of a pastor. He added that the man was not even old, and the entire setup made him feel uncomfortably squeamish. However, the older woman instantly turned on her gangster baddie energy. She corrected him sharply, stating that the man was not a pastor but a priest, before warning him not to make her angry. She pierced her grandson with a question, demanding to know why they dared cast judgment upon others like that. In her blistering summation, the youth of this era were nothing but a disrespectful tide, a generation that wouldn't even extend a hand to an elder. That said, she declared, with the weight of centuries, that if the man felt discomfort, the burden of finding his own resolution rested squarely on his back. He simply groaned in response, a heavy sigh marking the familiar endless cycle of her nagging. The older woman then intervened again, telling him that even a rotten old hag like her had to go through such hellish trouble just to aid him, all for being a useless waste of space. Her eyes were fixed upon Meokwaisa's weak, unconscious body. The powerful priest collapsed into nothing more than a frail consciousness, but the older woman quickly noted grimly that the anesthesia was already beginning to wear off. She then commanded her grandson to start his business soon. The guy agreed, and as he stared at the body of Meokwaisa lying on the metal bed, he retrieved the necessary operation material from beside him. He offered a chilling smile as he stated he would begin the procedure by operating on the liver. He warned the unconscious priest not to wake up because it would be excruciatingly painful if he did. He prepared to cut open Mio Kwai-sa's stomach, adding with cold assurance that the whole thing would be over soon. Meanwhile, this older woman lit her cigarette, complaining that because of her ugly, useless grandson, she couldn't retire, and this bad thing had happened. The older woman then let out a dry, shocking laugh and delivered a grim reveal. The guy was not actually her real grandson. Surprise! Suddenly something startled her, and her attention snapped back to her fake grandson. Wondering what was happening and why he was causing trouble again, she saw that the man was utterly shocked and shaking violently. He whispered a bizarre confession. A woman was inside his stomach. He was in fact absolutely correct. A mysterious lady was peacefully sleeping inside Mio Kwai-sa's stomach. The older woman harshly pinched his ear and questioned him about staying up all night on the computer again, assuming he was hallucinating. But the guy desperately pointed to his stomach and insisted he was serious. At that critical moment, the mysterious lady slowly opened her eyes, regaining consciousness inside the priest's stomach. As the older woman continued scolding her grandson, the mysterious lady began to emerge from his stomach, an utterly uninvited guest. When she was fully out, she stretched her head and neck with palpable relief, a creature pulling her disgusting body out as if performing a DIY cesarean section on the bewildered priest. The old hag was utterly shocked and confused, wondering what kind of creature she had brought into her life. The mysterious lady merely offered a smirk, declaring it had been 3 centuries since she last breathed fresh air, before claiming the outside world felt incredibly refreshing. Both the old hag and her grandson were left completely stunned, and the hag firmly told the woman not to come closer. The old hag also asked the mysterious lady why she had no plot armor and sternly wondered whether she was a ghost, clearly confused about the genre conventions of her own story. But the mysterious lady just smiled and thanked them. She pulled a piece of her hair, telling them that their stupid and reckless actions had opened the gates of hell. As a perverse reward for their assistance, she declared she would turn the 2 of them into monsters. She then blew 2 pieces of hair from her head and uttered some words that meant nothing to them. The old lady was stunned, and the guy immediately began groaning in pain as his body violently changed. All of a sudden, he became a monster, and the old lady was shocked. She screamed that his body had suddenly swelled. In a moment of twisted transformation, the old lady became the physical level 3 monster, Hong Kong Grandma, and the guy became the physical level 3 monster, Wrestling Goblin. Then the mysterious lady smiled and coldly announced that from that moment on, they would be her puppets. She spoke with bitterness, saying it was too bad to think she had ended up like this because of those humans she supposedly liked so much. The woman looked at Mio Kwai-sa's unconscious body lying on the metal bed. It turned out that he was the monster hunter responsible for the entire monster phenomena. Nonetheless, she used her power to magically close the massive gash in Mio Kwai-sa's stomach. As the slice on the priest's body was still closing by itself, the woman pulled up a piece of hair from her head again and said that this was the reason she had always told him that humans weren't worth protecting. Mio Kwai-sa's slice on his body was completely closed, and from that moment forward, she commanded him to ally with the monsters. All the while, she prepared to blow a strand of her hair towards him once more. But Mio Kwai-sa immediately gained a sudden burst of strength as he woke up in rage. Suddenly, Mio Kwai-sa bit the lady's finger. But this lady just smiled, seemingly impressed, and was glad the body could regenerate in that state, calling it truly amazing. All of a sudden, Mio Kwai-sa punched her with force. He was clearly enraged at that moment. Unfortunately, the newly formed Hong Kong Grandma instantly attacked him with her 9 tails. According to Mio Kwai-sa's internal commentary, the Hong Kong Grandma had the tail of the 9-tailed fox, but he was momentarily confused about why the tail appeared in the front. With a sudden roar, the goblin commanded him to take what was offered, then dared him to a wrestling match, a particular and bizarre form of combat in a moment of existential crisis. Instantaneously, the goblin punched Mio Kwai-sa directly in his face. The goblin was very determined to take down Mio Kwai-sa as he followed up with a left belly hit, and after that was a piggyback hit. Mio Kwai-sa was confused about why the monster was using wrestling moves. He was just going to beat him up, simply and non-theatrically. But suddenly the wrestling goblin made his final covering move, successfully executing a technique, and stepped down hard on Mio Kwai-sa. Then this lady smiled, her gaze fixed on the prone priest, and she told the wrestling goblin that was enough. She commanded him not to kill the priest. Surprisingly, she said that Mio Kwai-sa was a pity as she looked at him lying on the ground. Her hair, which seemed to have a life of its own, covered her entirely as she spoke. She mused that it would have been nice if they were all on the same side. Mio Kwai-sa was still lying on the ground with no consciousness, the victim of a surprisingly efficient wrestling attack. The mysterious lady then grabbed Mio Kwai-sa with her supernatural hair and presented him with an alternative. If he disliked being turned into a puppet, he could be eaten instead. Mio Kwai-sa's eyes almost popped out when the woman's hair went inside his mouth. She challenged him to reveal his aspirations, demanding that he show her where he truly desired to be. Mio Kwai-sa was startled. his terror evident as the woman put a mass of her thick long hair directly into his mouth. She instantly found what she was looking for and announced that it was the very bead of the monster hunter Miki's Guisa she had heard legends about. At that moment, she was about to push it down her throat, declaring that she would enjoy eating it, and she swallowed it immediately. Abruptly, Mio Guisa's body withered. He instantly became an older, frail man, and his hair gradually fell out. This lady was overjoyed, laughing as she said she could taste the complex flavors of every monster Mio Guisa had ever eaten, proclaiming it was the best flavor she had ever tasted, a rather unique if cannibalistic form of food criticism. Mio Guisa, now frail, declared that he couldn't die like that. With a desperate grit of his teeth, he articulated his plan. He thought he had only one chance to concentrate all his remaining strength. With a defiant declaration of "through the black hole," a sudden fiery propulsion from his rear launched him skyward. This was Mio Guisa's unique magic, an incredibly old-fashioned magic technique that erupted from his utility hole. Using the unexpected blast, he immediately flew upward, managing to blast through the ceiling and escape from them. The lady looked at the hole he created. She was utterly confused and wondered whether that bizarre move was truly his last resort, an old-fashioned technique that had squeezed out the last ounce of his remaining strength. The Hong Kong grandma appeared behind her and asked if they should pursue Mio Guisa, but the lady told her no, she couldn't chase after the monster hunter Mio Guisa's distinctive old-fashioned technique. She smiled, indicating that a sinister plot was already forming. She said that instead of chasing him, she had a more pressing duty. She had to let everyone know that the Hell Demon was back to turn the world into hell. At that moment, she began the process of summoning the Type Level 1 monster, the Hell Demon. Meanwhile, these three people were actively bullying a guy who stood helplessly before them. The man in the center, with a cruel sneer, called the victim Hole and mockingly wished him a happy birthday. The lady with them laughed sharply, finding the situation hilarious. According to the man in the center, he had been genuinely wondering what to get Hole as a gift, but this unexpected punishment, forcing him to eat the cocoa balls and a bunch of sachets in front of him, seemed like the best option. He commanded the bullied guy not to leave anything behind and to eat every last bit of it. The victim, startled by the aggressive command, meekly thanked them, mumbling that the amount seemed excessive. But before he could finish, the man slapped him across the face. The man's voice boomed, questioning what would happen if he didn't eat it. He had gone through such an ordeal to acquire it for him, and now a wave of disappointment washed over him. With no choice left, the guy simply told the bully that he was going to eat it now. However, the victim's inner thoughts revealed his true identity. His name was not Hole, but Goyong. Since he was young, he had been relentlessly bullied because of his petite build. The devil-like person tormenting him was named Kang Jong-bo. In fact, he and Kang Jong-bo had been friends since they were children. They were born and raised in the same neighborhood, and Kang Jong-bo had been the only real friend Goyong ever had. But when they entered high school, Kang Jong-bo suddenly transformed into a bully, just like what he was doing to him now, forcing him to eat a bunch of cocoa balls. That fundamental shift started to bother Goyong. The bullies counted the number of cocoa balls Goyong had already eaten. It was already his 15th pack, and there were still 35 he needed to consume. They also threatened him that if he vomited, he had to eat the vomit too, as they laughed at Goyong. Kang Jong-bo was thrilled and satisfied filming Goyong's suffering. It was as if his childhood friend had become an entirely different person. At that moment, Kang Jong-bo suddenly stopped filming Goyong's humiliation. Kang Jong-bo then posed the question to his two companions, wondering if their plans to drink with the third-year seniors were still in effect. The lady, quick to dismiss the current dull activity, eagerly affirmed their attendance, while the other readily confessed his longing for a drink. Goyong was shocked and relieved after hearing this. He hoped it meant he could finally stop eating. Then Kang Jong-bo offered him a sinister smile and asked him if he had heard their plans. He told Goyong they had to leave, so he had to eat faster. He generously gave him 5 minutes to finish, which Goyong thought was a genuine gesture of friendship. Goyong was startled by the bizarre reality he faced, thinking that everything should have been fine, yet the strange events couldn't possibly be real. Meanwhile, on the dimly lit street, where only the single street lamp served as the source of light, Goyong's body betrayed him. Goyong was violently vomiting, and he was horrified to notice that the contents were a viscous substance that was black like feces. He was confused, wondering why Kang Jong-bo kept tormenting him by forcing him to eat so much. Goyong reflected that the entire situation was bizarre. No matter how much he ate, he never seemed to gain weight, and besides, he felt he already had more than enough enemies. Suddenly, Goyong was startled and deeply puzzled after hearing a horrifying, unnatural sound. Not far from him, he saw the hand of an older man lying on the ground in pain. With no hesitation, Goyong went to check it closely. His eyes opened wide, looking at the man's whole body. He was shocked when he saw the withered, elderly form of Mio Guisa near him. Goyong rushed to help, asking if he was okay and telling him to hold on a little longer so he could quickly call the emergency services. But Mio Guisa cut him off, his voice urgent, declaring that the Hell Demon had awakened. He warned that the Hell Demon would summon countless monsters from hell, and she was actively trying to open the gate that separated the two worlds. Goyong was left speechless by the impossible claims. Goyong still maintained his focus on the real-world danger and told Myeokgwe-sa that he would still call emergency services. Suddenly, Myeokgwe-sa grabbed his hand, his grip surprisingly firm for a frail older man. Myeokgwe-sa insisted that he was not joking. He explained that if the gate to hell opened, the distinction between the human world and hell would completely disappear. The world would literally turn into hell. Goyong was startled by the conviction in the older man's voice and nervously asked Myeokgwe-sa what they should do. Myeokgwe-sa, with both his hands on the ground, tried to pull himself up, trembling in fatigue. Abruptly, Myeokgwe-sa stood up, regaining a sudden, terrifying composure, and he told Goyong to eat him. Goyong was utterly shocked at that moment, and pointing at the eccentric figure, asked Myeokgwe-sa if he was just an insane old grandfather. Goyong noted that the older man seemed excited and was bizarrely taking off his clothes outside, definitely not the standard protocol for a roadside medical emergency. Nevertheless, Myeokgwe-sa told him that he was simply getting old and rusty. Myeokgwe-sa firmly gripped Goyong's jaw and opened his mouth wide. While Goyong was still in shock and didn't have a clue what was happening, Myeokgwe-sa stretched Goyong's mouth unnaturally, as wide as it could swallow a whole person. He told Goyong that he would now pass on his power, the strength of Myeokgwe-sa. With that, Myeokgwe-sa entered into Goyong's mouth and vanished, leaving a final command. He stated that from now on, Goyong would be the one to eat monsters and fight for the sake of humans. Goyong was still kneeling on the ground as Myeokgwe-sa entered his body through his mouth, with just his legs down to his feet visible outside of Goyong's mouth. This lasted until only Myeokgwe-sa's ankle down to his feet was left before Goyong entirely swallowed him. Goyong was left reeling, struggling to grasp the cruel reality that he now had to fight and inherit a terrible, violent fate. Goyong was still in shock, asking himself how it had happened as he raised his hand and felt his mouth. He was utterly confused, wondering if the older man had truly entered his mouth and how his transformation had occurred so suddenly. Before Goyong could process the impossible events, a familiar voice called him. Kang Jong-bo asked him sharply if he was still there. Goyong was startled again when Kang Jong-bo came back, his demeanor having completely changed. Kang Jong-bo was carrying a bag filled with alcohol and declared to Goyong that it would be a pity to miss drinking on his birthday. Kang Jong-bo laughed maniacally and announced that this time their torment would be a drinking show. He then challenged Goyong, asking if he could honestly drink all of what he brought. Apparently, the cocoa ball punishment was just the appetizer. Goyong, still dazed by the transfer of power and the shocking taste of the old priest, was stunned. He tried to ignore the new threat and asked Kang Jong-bo if he had just seen an old grandfather near them. Kang Jong-bo laughed off the question, asking Goyong what kind of nonsense he was spouting. Nonetheless, Goyong inexplicably felt compelled to act. He opened his mouth, startled by how wide it stretched, a clear sign that the recent consumption of Myeokgwe-sa had fundamentally altered his anatomy. Then, in a moment that defied comprehension and all forms of self-preservation, he ate Kang Jong-bo. The bully turned out to be a surprisingly quick snack. Goyong was confused and horrified by his own shocking action. Still, as he confronted the bully, Kang Jong-bo only laughed wildly, questioning what kind of unbelievable nonsense was happening. Goyong, still stunned by the involuntary act, stood frozen. Then Kang Jong-bo, still intact and absolutely terrified, held onto the edges of Goyong's strangely large, distended mouth, and he violently got himself out of it. Goyong instantly stammered an apology, telling him that it wasn't him and he hadn't meant to do it. He was utterly confused as to why his mouth had stretched open like that. Kang Jong-bo looked absolutely petrified. He pointed at Goyong and fearfully called him Myeokgwe-sa. Goyong, confused, asked him what that term meant. But Kang Jong-bo, shaking with terror, told Goyong that he was the monster devourer, Myeokgwe-sa. Goyong insisted he didn't know what that meant and asked Kang Jong-bo to explain. Kang Jong-bo was startled and shouted that this was impossible. Goyong shouldn't have even known who Myeokgwe-sa was. All of a sudden, Kang Jong-bo violently kicked him, and Goyong fell hard to the ground. While Kang Jong-bo deliberately stepped down hard on his face, Goyong's face abruptly began to contort and change as well. Kang Jong-bo laughed maniacally and screamed at him that Goyong didn't understand anything. This strange incident was proving to be a total profit for the bully, perhaps the only upside to witnessing cosmic horror. Goyong was startled and confused, wondering what kind of nightmare this was, only to realize that Kang Jong-bo's face had transformed, now resembling that of a monstrous dog. Kang Jong-bo had become the physical level 7 monster Jund at that moment. Suddenly, the monstrous Kang Jong-bo was upon him. Goyong was violently kicked by Jund and was sent flying a significant distance. Goyong landed hard and was left groaning in excruciating pain. Then Jund clenched his transformed fist, rushed back toward Goyong's position, and with terrifying speed, he landed a brutal punch square in his face. According to Jund's gloating, people had long spread rumors that if you managed to eat the Myeokgwe-sa's bead, you could gain access to a tremendous world-altering power. Jund picked up a nearby piece of wood, sneering that it was hilarious that Goyong was the one who was supposed to become the monster devourer Miyokagi-sa. As expected, he declared he was the lucky one. All of a sudden, Jun savagely struck Goyong using the heavy piece of wood he carried. Jun smirked and admitted he was confused about how Goyong had managed to eat that bead in the first place. Jun called Goyong a hole again, and was also curious how he ate the bead, but Goyong didn't answer him and was still feeling the pain from Jun's attack. Jun stated that it ultimately didn't matter whether Goyong was clueless, as he gripped Goyong's shoulder with both hands and pointed his sharp black nails, because he would simply eat everything from Goyong, from head to toe. Goyong was overwhelmed, thinking frantically, wondering if this unbearable torment must surely be a dream. According to his desperate thoughts, this was truly too much. It wasn't enough that he had been relentlessly harassed in reality, but now he was even suffering this agonizing state in his own dream, a terrible lack of quality rest. Suddenly, the voice of Miyokagi-sa sounded sharply within his mind. The former monster hunter Miyokagi-sa asked him what he was doing, and urgently told him to fight back against that monster, simply. But Goyong was confused and asked aloud who was talking to him. Miyokagi-sa firmly told him again to fight, but Goyong responded with resignation, saying he didn't know how. Goyong confessed that he had always just endured his torment and waited for it to end. He told Miyokagi-sa that if you just keep enduring, it would eventually end, just as this miserable dream would. Miyokagi-sa, however, vehemently dismissed Goyong's philosophy. He declared that mere endurance would only hasten his demise, especially with Jin poised to consume him head first. Miyokagi-sa added that simply running away would only make him a target. Miyokagi-sa sternly instructed Goyong to stretch out his fist because, whether he liked it or not, he was now Miyokagi-sa, the apex predator. All of a sudden, galvanized by the internal command, Goyong instinctively punched Jin in Kang Jong-bo's body, and the monster's arm was instantly separated from his body. Goyong was utterly startled and confused by the shocking, unexpected power he had unleashed, a truly spectacular end to years of built-up frustration. Then Kang Jong-bo, or the monster Jin, was enraged, shouting that the loss of his arm hurt badly. He furiously demanded to know what that attack was and accused Goyong of pretending to be clueless. Miyokagi-sa immediately told Goyong to finish the job, but Goyong hesitated, still worried and unable to accept the violence. Then Miyokagi-sa's voice sharpened, telling him he absolutely needed to finish the monster and not give it any time for regeneration. At that moment, Kang Jong-bo's anger turned to fear. He begged Goyong to wait, pleading that they could talk about it, and swore he was just joking around. But Goyong clenched his fist, and Kang Jong-bo desperately reminded him that they were friends, as their friendship flashed back to when they were young. But despite Kang Jong-bo's pleas, Goyong punched him again, this time on his face. This time the monster's head had been separated from its body. Kang Jong-bo screamed that he couldn't die like that, but Goyong had already started to eat him. While he was being consumed, Kang Jong-bo kept frantically telling him to wait, but Goyong quickly and decisively swallowed him. The only things left behind were Kang Jong-bo's discarded clothes and a pair of his slippers. At that moment, Goyong was startled and remained deeply confused about what had just transpired. He was frantically wondering whether the whole episode had been a dream. But suddenly Miyokagi-sa spoke, the sound coming clearly from his belly, telling him directly and firmly that it was absolutely not a dream. Goyong was shocked, his curiosity overriding his fear as he wondered whether the voice he had heard truly came from his abdomen. Then he lifted his clothes and looked down, where he saw Miyokagi-sa, who calmly told him that the guy, Jong-bo, was actually possessed by a monster, which was why the eating had occurred. Goyong was both shocked and profoundly nervous about why his belly was talking back to him. However, the voice inside him introduced himself as Hong Guang Yu and confirmed to Goyong that he was indeed Miyokagi-sa, the monster devourer. He told Goyong that he didn't have much time left, so Goyong must listen carefully and absorb every word. Goyong remained utterly speechless, overwhelmed by the voice and the knowledge of his new inhabitant. According to the voice, monsters were originally beings that lived in hell, but some, like the one that possessed Jong-bo, came to the human world just as they were doing now to eat humans. He elaborated, explaining that monsters had two fundamental ways of eating humans. The first was meat eating, which meant literally chewing and consuming human flesh. The second, more insidious way was soul eating, a method used to absorb human fears and despair. Miyokagi-sa added that even these horrific monsters had natural enemies. They constantly ate, fought, and competed among themselves for survival. Then he delivered the final, undeniable truth. The apex predator was Miyokagi-sa. He told Goyong that he was now the real Miyokagi-sa. Goyong was startled and in a moment of panic asked him why, out of all the capable people in the world, he had been chosen when he couldn't even fight. But Miyokagi-sa told him that their meeting was not a coincidence. It was the recurrence of a pattern just like what had happened 300 years ago, and it was now his destiny to save the world. But Goyong questioned the painful declaration, asking if it was destiny. Miyokagi-sa confirmed this, telling him that it was the same brutal fate he himself had experienced, the same cruel fate. He begged Goyong, his voice pleading from inside the boy's abdomen as it was slowly disappearing. Myeokgwae-sa implored Goyong to please stop the monsters, stop the Hell Guardians, and stop their plot to destroy the world. Having transferred his power and his mission, Myeokgwae-sa fully entered Goyong's tummy, his presence consolidating within him. Goyong was startled at the finality of Myeokgwae-sa's transfer into his body. While looking down at his stomach, he was racked with worry, realizing that Kang Jong-bo had indeed disappeared entirely, the ultimate way to cancel a friendship. Meanwhile, the next day on the school campus, Goyong sat, stunned and confused, trying to piece together what had happened the day before. He muttered to himself, confirming that it was definitely not a dream. He looked at the empty chair beside him and noted that Jong-bo didn't come to school. That stark absence finalized the grim realization that the events, no matter how bizarre, were real. Suddenly, one of Jong-bo's friends hit Goyong's head sharply. He asked him whether he had met Jong-bo the previous day, demanded to know where he had gone that day, and angrily inquired why they couldn't even contact him. Then the other guy said that the sudden disappearance sounded incredibly suspicious. Goyong told them that he honestly didn't know either. But the man in the center, asserting his dominance, told Goyong that if he considered himself an enslaved person, he should always check his master's whereabouts. And the other man laughed, saying Goyong was clearly not doing his job. However, the man in the center told Goyong to forget about the questions and simply go to the store and buy him some burgers. Goyong immediately followed the order and walked straight out of their classroom. While walking, Goyong was stunned and confused, thinking to himself that he didn't even know whether these guys were monsters or what. Yet, he was forced to admit that he was the one who had killed Jong-bo. All of a sudden, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Goyong immediately rushed to the comfort room as his stomach was still in pain. Goyong was sitting on the toilet, muttering that he had done all these terrible things. But still, Kang Jong-bo, before becoming a monster and tormenting him, had been his best friend. Kang Jong-bo was always by his side, the only friend he ever truly had. At that moment, his tears started to fall, and he said he couldn't believe he had ended up killing him. Suddenly, he was startled and utterly confused. He wondered what that was when he noticed something moving in his utility hole. He was shocked when he saw someone emerge from the toilet, and he was confused, wondering if he had popped him out. Goyong looked at the bathroom and he saw his best friend Kang Jong-bo, a truly terrible surprise from a plumbing fixture. The man in the center was mad and declared he was hungry. Their lunchtime was already over, and he was confused about why Goyong wasn't there yet, while the girl from their group said he had already missed Kang Jong-bo. Then suddenly, their teacher came in and told them they would start class, so they had to take their seats immediately. But the man in the center arrogantly told their teacher that there were still 3 minutes left for lunchtime. The teacher patiently told them that his watch showed it was already on time and asked if they couldn't just start the class since there wasn't much time left anyway. But this man smirked and stubbornly said that he didn't want to. Then, with shocking disrespect, he told his teacher to get out. Out of curiosity, this man then asked whether being forced to start class wasn't a violation of human rights, a remarkably selective interpretation of civil liberties. The teacher let out a deep sigh, fighting to keep his emotions in check. He asked if that was truly the case, his anger barely concealed. He muttered that those pigs didn't even know the true meaning of human rights. However, the teacher immediately turned back and announced that he would be back in 3 minutes. Suddenly, a man called out to him and asked him aggressively if they had called the students pigs. The man then instructed the people around him, perhaps his classmates, to take a picture of them. Next, he pointedly asked the teacher if it was acceptable for an educator to say such derogatory things to a student. The teacher was visibly embarrassed and claimed that was not what he had meant to imply at all. However, the man merely smiled knowingly and told him that his weak excuse wouldn't work. The bully added that he fully intended to report this entire incident to the educational office. All of a sudden, they were all profoundly shocked when they noticed something extraordinary outside the classroom window. They were completely confused about what exactly was going on and what had caused the abrupt exploding sound they had just heard. Then, a genuinely enormous serpent suddenly appeared, and they were all instantly filled with curiosity and apprehension about what the bizarre creature was. A student smirked confidently and told his classmates it was just a movie shoot, with CG that was obviously poor. Some of the students believed it was just computer graphics, but a lady immediately challenged him, asking him how computer graphics could be visible outside the window in real life. Suddenly, the teacher's phone rang with a shrill sound. The teacher calmly answered the call while the students with him were still arguing about what they saw outside. He then smiled unnervingly as he finally announced their arrival. He added that he had been waiting for that day for 300 years, and that he would prepare the young meat right away. These students were utterly shocked after overhearing their teacher's terrifying words. Their teacher then began to change form rapidly in front of the students. The teacher told them they were indeed pigs because they were initially only his food. The students were stunned as they looked up, expecting their teacher to change into a monster. This teacher became the physical manifestation of the 4th grade monster demon teacher, and he loudly announced to the stunned students that the hell demon had finally returned. The demon teacher then pointed his sharp nails at a specific bully and said that the time had come to return humans to their status as livestock. The monster demon teacher violently pierced his forehead with an unseen force. Suddenly, the bully let out a maniacal laugh, revealing the demon teacher's unique, terrifying magic trick. The lady in the room was visibly startled, asking if it was just a part of CG, and the guy who had been talking earlier looked over at her. The bully immediately bit the lady near her aggressively. The lady was screaming in intense pain at that very moment. Instantly after, she began to laugh chillingly and quickly attacked another classmate. The demon teacher, observing the carnage, let out a maniacal laugh, utterly satisfied. This, he declared, was far more human, and it was truly a pleasure to see it after such a long time. Looking back toward Kang Jongbo's body at the toilet, he was still unconscious. Until he eventually regained consciousness, he was completely confused about what was happening around him. Goyong was instantly startled and thanked God that Kang Jongbo was actually alive and apparently unharmed. However, a deep confusion immediately settled over him. He wondered whether this person was really the Kang Jongbo he knew, or a monster imitating him. Suddenly, Kang Jongbo felt a sharp, intense pain in his head and asked Goyong why he was behaving so strangely. Goyong quickly smiled and told him that he didn't know anything. He had just heard an alarming sound and rushed into the room. Kang Jongbo then asked him if they were in a school. He added that he knew what was going on, stating that he distinctly remembered going home with Goyong. According to Jongbo, he specifically recalled being bitten by a dog on the way. Goyong was genuinely shocked, thinking to himself that there was no logical way Kang Jongbo could have been bitten by a dog while walking home with him. All of a sudden, Kang Jongbo noticed something. He was startled when he noticed a distinctive tattoo on his arms. He immediately asked Goyong why he had a tattoo and whether it would be permanent. However, Goyong dodged the question and asked Kang Jongbo what grade they were in at that moment. Kang Jongbo told him that they were in 9th grade while covering his private parts because he was naked in front of Goyong. Then he pointedly called him Goyong and questioned him about his strange school uniform. Goyong was severely startled. According to his memory, they were in the 10th grade. And Kang Jongbo never called him Goyong even once, he always called him Ho, like the other kids did. Goyong seriously considered that this new unsettling behavior could also be a monster imitation. Without warning, Goyong turned to Kang Jongbo and asked about his gaming preferences, specifically whether he favored a particular popular game. Kang Jongbo's enthusiastic affirmative response revealed a deeper ambition. He hoped to become a professional gamer one day. Goyong then told him that his leading champion was a specific character in the game. He then asked Kang Jongbo what his own position was in the game. But Kang Jongbo immediately asked him why they were suddenly talking about games, and why Goyong said that his leading champion was that specific character among all of them. He told Goyong that he was being incredibly annoying with his nonsensical words. Then Goyong quickly apologized to him. Suddenly, his tears began to fall down his face, calling out his best friend's name, Jongbo. Kang Jongbo was utterly shocked at that moment, his eyes wide with a sudden painful realization. Nonetheless, Goyong quietly thanked him for coming back, his voice thick with unspent emotion. But Kang Jongbo was confused by the shift in the air, and quickly asked him why he was suddenly crying. Goyong simply said that it was nothing. A slight unconvincing dismissal. He then opened the door to the comfort room and told Jongbo to wait for a moment, explaining that he would get his gym clothes. When he finally came out, Goyong was stunned but was very happy inside. Goyong's internal thoughts concluded that all the memories had disappeared along with that monster, and Jongbo had returned to his original self, appearing gentle and kind again. All of a sudden, Goyong was startled and puzzled when he heard that this lady was laughing, her voice ringing with a terrifying happiness. She said she was overjoyed. However, Goyong then realized there were many people all laughing, a cacophony of cruel, mocking sounds that sent a chill down his spine. Just then, this towering demon teacher asked him why he was there alone, and with a predatory smile commanded Goyong to come over to join the rest of the livestock herd. Goyong was instantly startled, his mind racing with the realization it was a monster. He didn't hesitate. He immediately re-entered the restroom, slamming the door shut. The demon teacher let out a low, cynical rumble of laughter that echoed through the air, mocking their foolish attempt to escape. He added that Goyong thought he could hold the door, which immediately started to slam under pressure. According to the demon teacher, it was a rule that disobedient livestock were the first to be slaughtered, a chilling promise of violence to come. Immediately, all of them were knocking on the door, their relentless banging shaking the small space. Goyong was startled and confused by the monsters in the school, their presence an unbelievable terror. He was frantically trying to escape through the window. As he was near the window, Kang Jongbo suddenly called out to him, asking what the noise outside was and what was happening. Goyong was clutching his head, realizing his friend Kang Jongbo was also inside. Kang Jongbo told Goyong that his head hurt so much. According to Kang Jongbo, strange things were suddenly coming into his mind, violent and terrifying images, and his head felt like it was going to explode from the sheer force of them. Tears freely flowed down Kang Jongbo's face, his heart heavy with a painful curiosity that compelled him to ask Goyong why such tormenting scenes were invading his mind. He desperately sought reassurance, pleading with Goyong that none of it could be real. Based on Goyong's desperate thoughts, Zhongbo was a kinder person than anyone he had ever known, but that kind of Zhongbo was taken away by a monster. Suddenly, Goyong remembered a time when he was with Zhongbo, a day that had seemed normal before terror struck. At that moment, Zhongbo asked him if they should go to the PC room. Kang Zhongbo simply smiled and said that his rank had dropped and he had to raise it, a carefree moment of friendship. But Goyong was confused because Zhongbo didn't have his shirt, he only had his gym pants. Kang Zhongbo jolted awake, his eyes snapping open at the sound of a slow, eerie creak nearby. There, he saw a wild dog and its eyes were completely white, burning with fury. Its sharp teeth glistened as its tongue slid across its mouth like a predator ready to strike. Suddenly, Kang Zhongbo and Goyong froze in shock. In front of them stood a huge, furious dog. They glanced around, wondering where its owner was. There was no leash, no muzzle, nothing to hold it back. A chilling thought struck them about the dog deciding to bite. In an instant, the wild dog sprang at Kang Zhongbo, its mouth stretched open, ready to sink its teeth into him. It lunged without warning, then bit Kang Zhongbo. The wild dog kept growling, its jaws locked tightly around Kang Zhongbo's arm. He winced as blood began to stream from the wound, dripping onto the ground below. Its eyes were still flashing until they slowly closed as if it no longer had the strength to stay awake. Shockingly, right after biting him, this dog passed out on the ground, completely still. Goyong was instantly worried and asked Zhongbo if he was okay. Kang Zhongbo didn't answer right away. He smirked and said that he was fine. He was looking at his wound and suddenly his eyes had flames, a terrifying glow that was not his own. Kang Zhongbo then said chillingly that it was great, and he liked the body very much. Goyong stated that the terrifying truth was that the monster took Zhongbo away and made him do bad things. Returning to the current scene, Goyong was stunned as he looked at the door. The relentless banging continued to shake the frame. He then clenched his fist. Goyong remembered when Miao Guai-sa had told him that just enduring it would eventually lead to death. Miao Guai-sa's words echoed in his mind, reminding him that running away would only make them prey. Goyong felt a surge of resolve and stretched out his fists, preparing himself. He then took off his clothes and gave them to Zhongbo, telling him to put them on. Zhongbo trembled, holding his head tightly while tears slipped from his eyes, the ache inside growing unbearable. Goyong thanked him for always protecting him when he was weak, a moment of heartbreaking clarity from the possessed boy. However, Goyong had already made his choice. He held the doorknob and opened the door. The monster's voice, channeled through the demon teacher, laughed in triumph. The demon teacher told him that he was so brave for opening the door by himself and that it was right. That's how good livestock should be. But Goyong merely clenched his fists, his fear giving way to pure resolve. According to his thoughts, he wouldn't endure any longer. He wouldn't run away anymore. Nevertheless, Goyong faced the monster and told him to stop being ridiculous. Goyong declared firmly that he was the monster devourer. He would eat them, and he was the apex predator after all. In the South Korean version of Congress, the man in the center looked distinguished in his dark suit. He bowed with practiced confidence and warmly greeted some people, even kneeling on the floor, saying it had been a long time since they had seen each other. He sincerely hoped everything had been going well for them without any trouble, and addressed an older lady, Cheonuk Bodhisattva. The old lady, who stood near a pillar with her arms crossed, was shocked by his seemingly humble greeting. She immediately asked him what could go wrong for someone like him. She told him that he was the one working hard and doing his duty for the country. He simply smiled at her directness, said they were doing well, and thanked the lady, whom he called Bodhisattva. At that moment, he was about to tell her something important, shifting his weight and leaning in slightly. Still, Bodhisattva interrupted and asked him if this was about a congratulatory message for the presidential election. The man nodded, confirming that she was right. He said he would like to ask for her support again, this time for the upcoming race, without losing their integrity. According to this old lady, the country's situation was going really well. She stated that once every 5 years she begged the shaman for the throne and the king's position. The man calmly asked her whether it wasn't all for the nation's peace and stability, a noble goal that everyone shared. Bodhisattva told him that peace and stability were indeed good, but just between them, even if he could gain the throne, it was up to him to make their king a righteous ruler. The old lady looked at him with gentle eyes and said in an encouraging tone that he must do his very best. The old lady ominously warned him that if he continued like that, he would all end up in the stone grinder hell. The man agreed with her without argument, acknowledging her stark warning. All of a sudden, she was shocked when she saw nothing on the paper she held loosely in her hand. The old lady's face creased with confusion, trying to understand what it all meant. It was clear from her expression that she was still wondering why, after a year, there was still no king in the country. The others around them were also shocked by her sudden, bewildered reaction, and the man in the center quickly asked her what she meant by that. Suddenly, a strange event occurred in the room, drawing everyone's attention. Out of curiosity, the man in the decent suit asked Bodhisattva what it was. Then this old lady called out to someone named So Jung and asked if she was there. Abruptly, this lady emerged from the shadows near the back wall, her eyes wide with shock as she looked at the commotion. Then, Bodhisattva commanded her to immediately release the army, detailing that they were going on an urgent mission. According to Bodhisattva, who stood rigid with fury, those monsters must have gone completely wild. With eyes ablaze, she swiftly moved to the window, the scene below igniting a furious declaration as she wondered how they dared unleash their transformation on her land. Returning to the fight scene, the demon teacher asked Goyong if he wanted to fight him, specifically about pigs, taunting him with a strange provocation. But Goyong was just looking at them, his face set in grim determination, and he prepared himself for the fight. According to his thoughts, which raced through his mind, he believed he could win, just as he had when he fought Zhong Bo's monster before. Goyong mentally resolved to fight without running away, reminding himself that he was, after all, a meat-eating monster, bolstering his resolve. However, this demon teacher laughed, emitting a chilling high-pitched sound, and said that it was true that livestock raised free-range tended to have faster maturing meat, a truly morbid compliment. Then, suddenly, they were all approaching Goyong in a quick, overwhelming surge. Goyong was mad that the demon teacher was using the students as a shield, sacrificing them without hesitation. They kept laughing as they approached him, taking pleasure in his predicament. Goyong clenched his fist and muttered to himself that he could do this. He could attack. Unfortunately, the wave of controlled students swiftly attacked him. The wave of students went above his body until Goyong was bitten savagely by one of the controlled monster students. Goyong screamed because of the sharp, intense pain. The demon teacher told him, savoring the moment, that he had turned every single one of his livestock into monsters. The demon teacher turned them into his teeth and his tongue. The demon teacher said it had been a while since he tasted this, the fresh, warm taste of young human meat. Nonetheless, the group of students kept biting Goyong, as if determined to tear him apart alive. The once human students had become monsters, their frenzy unrelenting, their every move guided by a sinister power that controlled them completely. Goyong lay helpless, unable to move. Only his eyes could shift, trapped beneath the weight of the students piled on top of him. Suddenly, the demon teacher was puzzled. His confident smile vanished as he was confused about what it was and why Goyong's taste was not human flesh. Goyong was just looking at the demon teacher through the swarm, and his expression was unreadable. Instantly, he was startled when he heard Myeok Guisa's voice suddenly asking him what he was doing. The sound echoed in his mind. Myeok Guisa also asked him if he was going to let himself be eaten like that. His tone incredulous. Myeok Guisa told him that at this rate, in less than 10 minutes, only his bones would be left, and he demanded to know why he didn't attack. But Goyong told him, the words strained by the ongoing pain, that those guys were not monsters. They were humans just being controlled by monsters, and he couldn't bring himself to harm them. Myeok Guisa asked him if in that state they were still humans. He reminded Goyong that they were the ones who bullied and tormented him. They were also the ones who turned a blind eye, standing by and watching as he suffered during the times he needed help the most. They harassed him in front of other students, and instead of helping or encouraging him, they laughed at him. Myeok Guisa asked again if Goyong still thought those people and monsters were the same. Goyong's voice was soft as he explained that the children were not tormentors, but simply afraid. They feared suffering the same fate as him, their apprehension a palpable weight in the air. Their actions, he insisted, stemmed only from terror. He remembered the times when some of them overcame that fear and helped him, like his friend Zhong Bo. Looking down with concern, Goyong said that humans were different from monsters. Myeok Guisa smiled faintly as if pleased. It was precisely what he expected to hear from someone who could still see humanity. Myeok Guisa's face swelled with pride as he declared the test a success. Goyong stared at him, confused about what test he meant. Calling Goyong's name once more, Myeok Guisa explained that the place they were standing in was actually inside Goyong's stomach. Goyong looked around and saw that the space was vast, like a cave. Myeok Guisa continued, explaining that for monsters to enter the human world, they must pass through a crack in the wall of hell. That crack was narrow, so they had to abandon their physical bodies. With a twirl of his index finger, he declared, calling forth a spirit form. Monsters came into the human world in a state known as demon fire. In this state, they had no physical strength, so they sought to possess human bodies. If a monster inhabited a human body for a year, it became the new owner of that body. This process was called complete monsterification. Once that happened, no one could save the host, not even with the strongest human exorcism magic. To destroy the monster, the human host must also be killed. But then Myeok Guisa lifted a finger and said there was one exception. He revealed to Goyong that there existed a single rare way to save a completely monsterified human. He pointed to a dark area within Goyong's stomach. It was the camouflage of a predator demon. Myeok Guisa explained that monsters eaten by a flesh-eating demon were completely digested and disappeared within its stomach. Meanwhile, the human host was expelled through the demon's body in a fully purified state. Goyong suddenly remembered what had happened to Kang Jong-bo in the toilet bowl. But before he could say anything, Myeok Guisa warned him that there were conditions. Startled, Goyong immediately asked what those conditions were. Myeok Guisa revealed that it required a heart that did not harbor hatred for humans. He added that if the flesh-eating demon harbored hatred for humans, the human host would be digested just like a monster. That was why Myeokgwi-sa had been testing Goyong. Goyong was left speechless as the truth sank in. Then Myeokgwi-sa declared that he would now unleash the flesh-eating monster within Goyong, a power that had long been sealed. But before doing so, he warned him once again. It was a dangerous and agonizing power, one that must be controlled with great care. According to Myeokgwi-sa, the true source of the meat-eating monster's power was its appetite. This understanding flashed through Goyong's mind. All of a sudden, Goyong started eating all the students surrounding him, consuming them in great gulps. Goyong swallowed as many of the students turned monsters as he could, forcing himself to keep going despite the horror. It was an unconventional approach to cleaning up the classroom. The demon teacher was utterly shocked and confused by what he saw while Goyong was swallowing them. Goyong could feel himself losing his grip on his mind. Each time he swallowed one of the monsters, it felt as though insanity was crawling down his throat with them. Goyong's eyes bulged as his stomach twisted painfully, the emptiness inside him unbearable. A wild hunger consumed him. He wanted to devour everything in sight. Goyong's mouth stretched unnaturally wide enough to swallow every student who had turned into a monster. As he devoured them, he muttered in a crazed voice that he wanted to eat everything. The demon teacher was stunned and shouted that Goyong was a meat-eating demon monster, a creature of true destructive appetite. At that moment, Goyong was already charging toward the demon teacher, moving with shocking speed, his mouth ready to stretch open once again. With a monstrous hunger in his eyes, he opened his enormous mouth, the darkness inside stretching toward the demon teacher's trembling fingers. In an instant, he lunged forward and bit the demon teacher's wrist, his hunger taking full control. Goyong bit the demon teacher's arm as if he wanted to tear it to the flesh, as Goyong was startled and confused about what was happening in that instant. This demon teacher was looking at him with a strange, passive expression while Goyong was eating his arm. Goyong was startled and was intensely curious about the unique feeling that he felt while he was eating the hand of the demon teacher. Out of nowhere, a blue light flickered, then blazed brightly, forming a glowing sphere that illuminated everything around it. There was a flash of lightning inside his body, a jolt of power he had never known, and Goyong exclaimed that it was incredibly delicious. Goyong kept eating the last remaining part of the demon teacher's arm, and once again said it was incredibly delicious. A dreamy look filled Goyong's eyes, glittering like stars. He felt as if he were resting in a field of daisies, while the remaining piece of the demon teacher's hand lingered between his lips as he bit it. Meanwhile, a gigantic, monstrous creature had appeared in downtown Seoul, causing immediate panic and chaos. As it was being reported live, the camera captured the long stretch of its body, with the far end already disappearing behind the clouds. A lady was watching the horrifying television report in the Congress building. It was a live report from the scene. According to her, Baku-sa seemed to have accumulated a lot of power, and it was so excited that it jumped around like that as soon as it arrived. Despite the danger, TJB Broadcast, also known as Taean Broadcasting Corporation, continued airing live coverage of the massive monster looming over the city. A helicopter, broadcasting the unfolding disaster, approached the monstrous creature to inform the people of what was happening. The creature's shape was similar to that of a massive snake. It had a human face, a deeply unsettling combination. At that moment, this strange, monstrous creature was looking directly at the camera, and it seemed like he was trying to say something. Then all of a sudden, the creature transformed into a level 5 monster, Baku-sa, fully revealing its terrifying identity as a massive elongated worm-like creatures with only noses and mouths, crawling out from Baku-sa's own mouth. A swarm of elongated creatures poured out of Baku-sa's mouth, crying out loudly that they were hungry as hell. They moved in a blur, rushing forward with wild energy. All of a sudden, the elongated creatures attacked the news helicopter, swiping it from the sky and tearing it apart as they desperately tried to get inside and devour the people within. A deafening roar escaped from Baku-sa as he bellowed that he was starving. The swarm of elongated creatures, still attached to his mouth, twisted and lashed around, serving as his monstrous jaws. Then he ate all the humans he saw scrambling below, consuming them to sate his sudden violent hunger. Bodhisattva was looking out the window at Baku-sa. Her expression hardened and grew focused, and she told the man behind her to first control all the news and social media coverage of the attack. But the man told her respectfully that the news was manageable, while SNS was difficult because most of the companies were foreign, making them difficult to regulate. Then Bodhisattva sternly told him to block it, whether by offering vast sums of money or by issuing explicit threats. She stated plainly that he was given that position to do such things, and if he couldn't, then he should return that piece of gold, a symbol of his power and authority. However, this man quickly apologized and said that he would do whatever it took to control it, realizing the extreme urgency of the situation. Although it wasn't the most suitable time given the chaos outside and the urgent tasks at hand, the man tentatively asked Bodhisattva where that monster had suddenly appeared from. Bodhisattva told him, with a sharp edge to her voice, that it didn't appear suddenly, and that such creatures had always been mixed among humans. She stated that a significant number of crimes that occurred in the human world, such as robbery, assault, rape, torture, murder, and threats, were the result of the monster's influence. However, while many of them ate meat and souls through less conspicuous means, it was pretty rare for someone to reveal his true identity like that and engage in eating people openly. The man was confused and asked her why. Bodhisattva explained that most monsters knew that if they engaged in such brazen acts, they would be killed by the Heavenly Jade Emperor immediately, a powerful deterrent that few dared to challenge. All of a sudden, someone called her on the radio phone, the static-laced voice cutting through the tension, and said that they had arrived at their destination. Bodhisattva spoke on the radio and told them to begin the exorcism immediately at maximum speed. Going back to Baikok-sa, according to his own boasting and pained roar, he hadn't eaten humans for a long time and he was damn hungry. He had been holding it back for far too long. Suddenly, an airplane appeared above him, its shadow momentarily engulfing the street, and the soldiers quickly disembarked, rappelling down onto the surrounding buildings. The leader immediately said that the target was a level 5 large monster, and that they needed to deploy at least 10 exorcism units around the creature. He galvanized his squad with a stark declaration, reminding them that their current lives were fleeting, but the afterlife stretched on forever. With those words, he propelled them toward the perilous mission ahead. The soldiers pulled a cord on their uniforms and their parachutes burst open above them. At that moment, they were all heading toward the monster, moving with military precision. But this monster suddenly told them in a resonant voice not to disturb him because he was hungry. Suddenly, he attacked all the soldiers who were closing in, swiping at them with immense speed and power. Cries of pain echoed as the soldiers were bitten on their arms, yelling furiously for the monster to die. One after another, the elongated creatures attacked, sinking their fangs into the soldiers' flesh and stretching their bodies apart in a horrifying struggle. One of the soldiers was already on this monster's head, having covertly deployed with the first wave. She shouted that the installation was successful. She announced that she would escape using the spare parachute she carried. All of them were glad at that moment and started to escape. A mix of relief and achievement sweeping through the soldiers, and the monster was momentarily confused about them, unsure why his attack hadn't stopped their efforts. The soldier at the head of the monster confirmed once again that all 10 exorcism talisman units had been installed successfully. She told her companion over the comms that they had worked hard and not to worry about the dead ones who had fallen. Bodhisattva Choonok would personally perform the ritual for their guaranteed rebirth in the Pure Land. Then this soldier thanked Sojong. His voice choked with emotion and finality, and he couldn't believe he had reached the Pure Land of Paradise so quickly. Sojong's voice, usually calm and collected, tightened with a professional outrage that was rarely seen. She declared that for Baku-sa to reveal its true form so blatantly and even engage in such a heinous act of cannibalism, the organization must surely be ridiculous. Her anger flared, fueled by what she considered a damn snake-like bastard daring to defile the sanctity of the city. With a specialized weapon held high, Sojong's voice rang out, proclaiming the commencement of the exorcism. Then she immediately stabbed the monster with the weapon, embedding it deeply into its colossal head. The other soldiers made this unique weapon sound, a loud, high-pitched clang that signaled the start of the ritual. Sojong looked at her companions in the helicopter, who were ready and waiting for her signal again. Sojong stepped onto the weapon she put on this monster's head, using it as a temporary platform. She held something else in her hands, a scroll or perhaps a talisman, and began to raise her voice above the city's noise, calling upon the gods of the sun, moon, earth, and heaven, as well as upon the grand heavenly Jade Emperor, the faithful lord of all. As her chant echoed through the air, her body slowly rose above the platform, surrounded by a faint, otherworldly aura. She added that they offered Biusa and pleaded for it to be accepted, her voice filled with unwavering determination, as if someone above would surely hear her. Sojong continued, asking that he be taken to hell so that he could be seen in no place and in no direction, her voice carrying with unwavering force as she remained elevated above the platform. She invoked the hell of the mountain of ice and fire, the hell of merging and transforming, the great transformation hell, the superheated hell, and the hell of tormenting spirits, her voice echoing with unstoppable power as if summoning forces beyond the mortal realm. The soldier in the helicopter hit the clang once more, his movements precise despite the chaos around him. The other soldiers joined in, playing drums and various musical instruments to perform the ritual. Sojong spoke her final words, asking for it to be taken. The monster Baku-sa looked horrified, his face twisting unnaturally as it paled and began to crack, the very sight of it sending a shiver through the air. Back in the classroom, the demon teacher fixed his piercing gaze on Goyong, who trembled in agony as he clutched his severed arm. Goyong was startled by the incredible surge of power, and he exclaimed that the demon teacher's arm was incredibly delicious. All of a sudden, the demon teacher grabbed Goyong's face with his remaining hand. His expression was a mask of desperate fury, and he immediately knocked Goyong down. He clenched his fist, a weapon of concentrated darkness, and according to his racing thoughts, it was said that the Hell Demon took the beat of Myeokwaisa, the legendary monster devourer. That meant Goyong was an empty shell without accumulated vitality and experience. Now was a golden opportunity to kill that evil monster before it could recover. Suddenly, Goyong blocked his mighty fist with an effortless speed that shocked the demon teacher, and Goyong simply said that he wanted to eat more. Then he immediately punched the demon teacher on his chest. The demon teacher groaned in searing pain. Confused by what that fist carried, it wielded terrifying force. He thought he was completely wrong. Even without the bead, Myeok-Wai-sa was still the monster devourer, and he realized he couldn't defeat him alone. Nonetheless, the demon teacher immediately kicked Goyong with a desperate burst of strength, and he was thrown away across the room. Then Goyong was startled at that moment, and he was looking intently at the door. The demon teacher disappeared suddenly, fleeing the scene as quickly as he could. However, the demon teacher escaped and was confused about calling someone, given their past disagreements and the high price. He knew their wages were simply too expensive to consider under normal circumstances. Then suddenly, this demon teacher called anyone he could reach, his need overwhelming his pride, and a hazy dark figure appeared in his inner eye. Someone asked him in a raspy voice if he had called for him. The demon teacher frantically pleaded for assistance, exclaiming that he desperately needed help and urging someone to come out and lend a hand. Then someone in his right eye said that they understood, and of course they could help him. But his left eye immediately asked him how much he could afford to pay them. The voice continued, explaining that he was so hungry and didn't even have the strength to come out for free. Suddenly, the demon teacher became angry with them and accused them of trying to negotiate from the start. They were treating his body like a commodity, even in this dire moment, but this guy calmly said that his skin was sticking to his bones. And it may sound absurd, but hunger was a strong motivator. At that moment, Galen was silently behind him, having followed his rapid escape, and he was looking at his enemy with a renewed predatory hunger in his eyes. Then this demon teacher saw Galen and told the monster in his body to kill Galen, his voice laced with venomous desperation, and he promised he would give them 100 humans as payment. Instantly, Galen ran faster, moving with preternatural speed, and these two monstrous figures had come out of the demon teacher's eyes. They appeared as twin ugly creatures filled with evil intent. All of a sudden, they swiftly attacked Galen, and both of them were laughing at that moment, relishing the fight. They were about to attack Galen again with coordinated ferocity. Still, they paused and told the demon teacher they might need to reconsider the price calculation, because Galen was not worth just 100 humans, suggesting a much higher value. Returning to the Baikusa monster, at that moment the soldiers were still assisting Sojong with the ritual, each playing a different sacred instrument that echoed through the city. Sojong remained elevated in the air, her voice trembling yet powerful as she chanted words invoking the hell of ice and fire, the hell of darkness and suffering, and the hell of condemnation to banish Baikusa. As the ritual intensified, Baikusa groaned in unbearable agony, the exorcism's power gripping his very soul. Sojong, drenched in sweat, desperately pleaded to the gods to cast Baikusa into the depths of hell. But Baikusa, writhing in torment, begged her to stop, his monstrous voice cracking with fear and despair. Sojong, undeterred, pressed on with the exorcism, her voice rising in a chant that echoed with unwavering resolve. She pleaded for the entity to be cast into hell, banished from sight in every direction, never to be seen again. Suddenly, the monster was about to attack her with a desperate lunge. Luckily, one brave soldier blocked the attack and protected her with his own body. This soldier shouted that they shouldn't let the monster stop the exorcism. The soldier tore off his parachute harness, willingly giving up his chance to escape. He got a dagger and he was about to stab the monster to buy Sojong more time. Gripping a dagger tightly, he charged toward the monster, determined to buy Sojong more time. He told him not to be afraid of death because even if they died, they would go to paradise. The soldier shouted that they needed to stop Baikusa, his voice filled with determination and fear. But before he could take another step, the monster lunged forward and brutally bit him, cutting his words short in a horrifying instant. Sojong's concentration shattered, a gasp escaping her lips as shock coursed through her. With a surge of renewed urgency, she implored the gods of the sun, moon, heaven, and earth to drag Baikusa into the depths of hell, to take him away from her sight. The monster's face was bloody, straining against the force of the spell. He cried out, the pain a sharp pang, yet he declared it was fine. With a bold assertion, he proclaimed it had been an eternity since he had truly eaten his fill. The monster added that now, even in hell, they can't lock up or confine them, his voice thick with malicious triumph. But unfortunately, the monster's tentacles were cut off by the encroaching magical boundary, and Sojong quickly told him that he had said that they couldn't confine him in hell. She dismissed his claim, calling it all nonsense. But suddenly she was startled when one of her comrades called out over her earphone and said that another powerful monster had been spotted. Then she was confused and asked her companion whether two monsters had appeared consecutively, and whether he had already identified the type of monster. Her companion said yes, and Sojong told him to transmit the data to her immediately. Suddenly, Bodhisattva called Sojong directly and told her to take the remaining combat-ready soldiers and head to Area 2, where the demon teacher had appeared. Sojong, startled, questioned if it was indeed the demon teacher she knew. She sought confirmation, asking if it was a grade 4 monster. Bodhisattva told her she was right, before explaining that after the incident with Bakusa, they would need more reliable soldiers to fight those monsters. As Sojung slowly descended with her parachute, she saw the shredded pieces of Bakusa's body scattered across the buildings in the city. However, Bodhisattva told the man behind her to deploy 2 more platoons of soldiers to the new location. But this man anxiously asked her if the demon teacher monster was really that strong and wasn't only a grade 4 monster among the grade 7 ones. According to Bodhisattva, a single grade difference meant the danger level was more than 10 times higher. In other words, he was equivalent to 10 bastard guys like Bakusa. Bodhisattva added that the demon teacher used a spell called Infection to turn humans into half-monsters. And once humans became half-monsters, they could turn other humans into half-monsters as well. If they couldn't be eliminated early, their country could be overrun by half-monsters. At that moment, he was visibly shocked, realizing the gravity of the threat. Then Bodhisattva told him that furthermore, the parasitic monsters Byung and Jong were implanted in his body to protect his weak physique. They were definitely not easy opponents. They were grade 4 top-notch martial artists. At that moment, Jong gritted his teeth in anticipation, and these 2 monsters were about to punch him simultaneously as they both stepped on Gyungan's hand. All of a sudden, they both hit Gyungan with crushing force. Gyungan gritted his teeth, pain surging through his body from the brutal blow struck by Byung and Jong. Then the monsters Byung and Jong soared above him, circling like predators as they clenched their fists, ready to strike again. And immediately, they stepped on Gyungan's back as he staggered. Byung and Jong swiftly shifted their positions, soaring above him, ready to deliver another crushing kick. As they executed their attack, the powerful impact sent Gyungan crashing hard into the ground once again. He was startled by their swift attacks, and in his mind he thought that they were fast. But he caught them, snaring their ankles as they descended. Both were shocked by his unexpected move and shouted at Goyong to stop pulling their pants. Suddenly, Goyong opened his big mouth, ready to eat Byung and Jung. Goyong quickly snapped at his attacker, but when he ate the 2 entities, he was instantly shocked and confused when they disappeared from his grasp. Goyong became mad at that moment, roaring in frustration. He saw that the remaining students were still biting him, a constant nagging pain. One of the female students biting his knee suddenly had one eye turn red, and something strange began to emerge from it. Out of nowhere, a devastating punch slammed into him with overwhelming force. Jung's fist crashed into Goyong's face with bone-shaking force, hurling him across the floor until he slammed into the cluster of monster students nearby. Goyong questioned what kind of attack Byung and Jung possessed. It was so fast that it was almost impossible to evade. Goyong was shocked to see Byung and Jung leave the kid's eyes. Back to Bodhisattva. The man he spoke with explained that those parasitic monsters specialized in hand-to-hand combat. He added that he should have gone there himself, not so Jung perhaps regretting his earlier hesitation. But Bodhisattva told him that his body seemed tired. He told her he had been lacking exercise these days and that he should go on a diet, trying to brush off the seriousness of the situation with a joke. However, Bodhisattva said that those guys did not just fight with simple martial arts. Grade 4 or higher monsters had their own unique spells, like the demon teacher's signature spell, Infection. At that moment, Goyong was punched again by the unseen monster. He was writhing in excruciating pain, screaming as the agony tore through him. All of a sudden, he devoured Bai Hung, Jung, and the other students in a single brutal sweep. Goyong froze in shock as they suddenly vanished before his eyes once again. Then someone asked him loudly where he was looking, and Goyong was just puzzled, unable to pinpoint their location. Then they introduced themselves and said their names were Bai Hung and Jung. They explained that they could move faster than sound through the bodies of the half-monsters created by their leader, demon teacher. Byung and Jung's unique magic spell, the Fast Punches, was ready to strike Goyong once again. In an instant, the fast punches hit him repeatedly, landing blow after blow with blinding speed. Goyong exclaimed that it was too quick and he couldn't catch sight of it. Byung and Jung emerged from every monster student's eyes surrounding him. He couldn't even tell where the attacks were coming from as the blows rained down. A relentless barrage of punches followed, striking him from every direction. Nonetheless, this demon teacher laughed gleefully and said that they would kill that demon bastard and have a feast to celebrate. They would set up a feast with the livestock they had caught at school. Byung and Jung were motivated by what they heard from the demon teacher. Somehow, Goyong knew he had to counterattack before it was too late. He tightened his fists, feeling the weight of every life depending on him. In his mind, he told himself he couldn't fall here, not when the students were counting on him. Gathering all his strength, he launched a wide, determined punch through the air. But to his surprise, his fist hit nothing. A mocking voice echoed as Jung appeared from behind, striking him hard and saying he had only hit their afterimage. Goyong stumbled back, shocked by how fast they were. Fear crept into his chest as he realized that if he failed now, both the students and Kang Jung-bo would be devoured by the monsters. All of a sudden, Myo Guisa noticed Goyong's desperation and told him to close his eyes. Goyong was startled and asked if Myo Guisa really wanted him to do that in the middle of a fight. Calmly, Myo Guisa explained that before a monster he had eaten was fully digested in his stomach, he could borrow that monster's ability for one day. The monster he devoured yesterday possessed an extraordinary sense of smell. Goyong began to focus, trying to awaken that ability. Myoguisa's voice echoed, telling him that if he closed his eyes and trusted his sense of smell, there would be no monster he couldn't defeat. He reminded Goyong that he was the monster devourer, the apex predator. In an instant, Goyong launched his fist forward with perfect precision. Striking Byuj directly, the monster was stunned as its mask cracked and shattered. Without hesitation, Garyu opened his mouth and devoured the defeated monster. Keeping his eyes closed, Garyu muttered that he could see everything now, he could smell it, and it was a delicious scent. Suddenly, he punched again, this time hitting Jiang with such force that the monster flew upward. Its mask began to splinter, showing it was about to break. Garyu opened his mouth once more and consumed Jiang whole. Then he froze for a moment, his senses heightening as he whispered that the most delicious smell of all belonged to the demon teacher. The demon teacher smiled darkly, hiding his fear behind a cruel grin as he demanded to know how Garyu managed to catch Jiang and Byung. Garyu stood silently, his single glowing eye burning with rage as he absorbed the abilities of the two monsters. The demon teacher's confidence was shattered. Declaring that it was time to retreat, he turned and ran, shouting that he couldn't handle Garyu alone. In desperation, he screamed for reinforcements from the hell demons. But as he ran, he noticed one of the monster students standing oddly in his path. Annoyed, the demon teacher yelled at the student to move aside and not get in his way. Yet the monster student only smiled, an eerie grin spreading across its face. Its right eye widened grotesquely as something began to emerge from it. The demon teacher froze, confusion and horror spreading through him. Then Garyung's voice echoed in his mind, reminding him that he could use the ability of any monster he devoured for one day, a temporary but deadly advantage. In the next heartbeat, Goyong burst out from the student's eye, his fist pulled back and ready to deliver a crushing blow to the terrified demon teacher. Going back to Sojong, at that moment she was startled but quickly steadied herself, her eyes burning with anger. She added that the demon teacher was at the school. Then she told everyone to surround the school with rice, meaning the magical substance used to create barriers. But the soldier behind her asked if she meant the magical barrier. He was also asked whether the barrier was strong enough to trap a level 4 monster, and he wondered if even humans would be unable to escape. Then Sojong told them that there was nothing they could do but take this extreme measure. Sojong added that if they were afraid of sacrifice, they would not be able to defeat the monsters. Those damn monsters took advantage of the weakness of human hearts. According to Sojong, they must stop the demon teacher there at all costs. Life was short, but the afterlife was eternal, echoing the leader's earlier solemn creed. They got ready, holding their samurai as she told them not to spare their lives. Going back to Goyong, he clenched his fist and punched the demon teacher, but the teacher managed to dodge it. According to Goyong, the smell made him feel like he was going crazy, and he was even hungrier than before. Suddenly, Goyong was behind this demon teacher. He was about to eat him as he once again opened his mouth wide, but the demon teacher avoided him. Goyong was mad and he gritted his teeth. He was confused as to why he was like that. His mind was filled with nothing but those thoughts of eating. However, the demon teacher told the monster students to stop Goyong quickly, but unfortunately, they were also eaten. While Goyong was eating them, the demon teacher was afraid. Goyong said their taste was awful and that he wanted something delicious, like what he had earlier. At this point, the demon teacher was running to escape. He then saw the door and said that he had to get out of there. Sadly, he bumped into the door and was curious if it was a barrier. Goyong approached the demon teacher and offered a deal. The demon teacher would tell him where the other monsters were, and he would let him keep eating the half-monsters until his stomach was full. But Goyong reacted instantly and devoured his arm before he could even pull it back, and the demon teacher screamed because he was worried about his arm. Then Goyong told him that he didn't want others to know. The demon teacher was the most delicious. Nonetheless, the demon teacher told him he was crazy and that he would eat him, calling him a level 4 monster. Goyong opened his mouth wide, ready to devour him whole. The demon teacher's face twisted with worry, realizing the terror of what was about to happen. Goyong, with rage blazing in his eyes, charged toward the demon teacher at incredible speed. He sank his teeth into the demon teacher's cheek, tearing through flesh as the demon howled in excruciating pain, clutching his face in horror and disbelief. Goyong was not finished yet. As he grabbed the demon teacher's face, Goyong began to devour the demon teacher's head completely. His movements fierce and unrelenting as a faint voice echoed within him, praising how delicious the flesh tasted. With rage still burning in his eyes, Goyong declared to the demon that he would eat his entire body. As he crunched through every piece of the demon teacher's flesh, he muttered that every part of it belonged to him alone and no one else could have it. Goyong continued to consume every remaining fragment of the demon teacher's body that was left scattered across the floor. At that moment, as Goyong was devouring the demon teacher, he suddenly stopped when he heard someone calling his name. Goyong looked in confusion at the one who called his name, his eyes still burning with rage. A man stood before him and asked what he was doing. It was Kang Jongbo, holding a mop tightly as he nervously asked what Goyong was eating. Goyong froze, startled by the question. When he looked down at his hands, he was horrified and confused by what he had done. He asked Jongbo what had happened, his voice trembling with disbelief. But Jongbo stepped back, gripping the mop with shaking hands, warning Goyong not to come closer. He also told Goyong to go away. his hands trembling as he gripped the mop tightly. Goyong tried to explain that he was only trying to save the kids. Nonetheless, Zhongbo turned and ran away in fear. Goyong stood in silence, stunned and speechless. However, these students had returned to their normal form, and they were confused about the teeth marks on their hands. According to Sojong, the half-monster condition had been lifted, and something had killed the demon teacher. Then a soldier asked her if it was even possible that a level 4 monster could be killed by normal human physical strength. Sojong said she guessed he was not human. She did not know what it was, but a creature stronger than a level 4 monster was there at the school. Meanwhile, 2 days later, a man playing a monster went mad and clenched his fist. He punched the soldier in front of him, but luckily, the soldier dodged it. The man was mad and told the monster he was slow and that he would send him back to where he came from. Then, suddenly, the soldier threw a talisman at him. It struck the monster squarely on the head, releasing a faint burst of light. All of a sudden, the director called cut. Then he smiled and told them that it was great. It was a challenging action scene, but as expected, their actor Lee Byung-hoon nailed it, and Song-chan also did a great job. Then these two thanked each other for their hard work. Suddenly, one reporter told Byung-hoon that the monster hunting filming scene was very realistic. According to the reporter, many people on social media mistakenly believed that a monster had actually appeared. The reporter then asked Byung-hoon what he thought. Byung-hoon laughed and told him he totally understood and that he got surprised sometimes too. He credited their special effects team from South Korea, which was recognized even in Hollywood. Byung-hoon guessed that he should ask them to make the effects a bit less shocking to stop freaking out people. However, Byung-hoon asked the viewers to continue their interest in the monster hunting film, which was scheduled for release that summer. In his live video, many viewers and commenters argued over whether it was real. At this point, Bodhisattva was watching the live video in the comments and said that people must not become aware of the existence of monsters. She stated that people's fear only nourished those damn monsters. She asked her disciple what had happened at that school and if they had CCTV footage. However, the disciple informed her that there was a blackout in that area due to the Baku-sa monster incident, so nothing had been recorded for the moment. He confirmed they had sent platoon number 23 to the school. According to Bodhisattva, the Baku-sa and the demon teacher had appeared and moved simultaneously, which could not be considered a mere coincidence. She suggested that perhaps they had come to their world and that someone had now returned them to hell again. Meanwhile, a man checked on a lady with the username Okji and tried to text her. The lady then texted him that she was thinking about what to eat because she was hungry. The guy told her that he was hungry too and asked the lady if she would like to have a drink together. But the lady wanted food instead of drinks and said that she would just eat and leave. They then planned to meet. The guy smirked, declaring it to be an easy task. He then laughed, questioning who she could believe he was a fanboy. According to him, she couldn't just eat and leave so easily. In the man's hand was a small tube filled with a strange shimmering liquid. He claimed that with just one drop of his liquid, she would sleep until tomorrow morning. At this point, they had already met and this lady said she wanted to eat quickly. Then this man smiled and told her she was really honest since she said they would just eat rice. But when they were at grandmother's restaurant, the guy said he guessed they wouldn't need a map, and he asked the lady why she had called him there. He added that he knew a nice place with a good atmosphere. Suddenly, the lady grabbed his hand and pulled him toward her. He was startled and confused as to why this girl was so strong, and the lady told him to hurry up and come since the other humans were waiting. This guy was shocked when he heard her talk about other humans. Then all these men were shocked and puzzled when the lady came and greeted them, saying that she was okay. But a madman asked her what she was doing now and whether she wanted to meet all the guys at once. Then the lady smiled and asked if her choice was acceptable. The man was mad and asked her if she was playing with them at that very moment. But suddenly the lady choked him with her hair. She also attacked the other guys and said that it was so annoying to eat them one by one. They groaned in agony and cried out for help as their bodies shriveled, aging rapidly until only skeletons remained. The man stood frozen, shocked and confused by what he had just witnessed. The woman smirked, mocking him as she said he was only meant to be her small meal. She explained that to open the gates of hell she needed to consume far more. Without warning, she wrapped her hair around his neck, choking him until his skull was crushed. Okeji lifted her skirt, revealing a strange tattoo on her abdomen that resembled an Illuminati symbol and glowed faintly. She declared that to open the gates of hell she needed 666 humans, with a sinister grin as her hair rose wildly, moving as if alive, while she laughed with furious delight, saying she only needed 200 more. Meanwhile, in the counseling room, a police officer apologized to the students for calling them out when they were busy studying. He explained that he was investigating the gas leak incident that happened a few days ago and the missing children. He then asked the students if they could tell him what had happened. That day, the lady told the police officer that she didn't remember well, and the guy said that he couldn't remember either. He recalled that when he came to his senses, he was in the hallway. The police officer said that the doctor must have told them they had temporary amnesia due to the gas. He apologized to them for not being able to prevent the accident. The guy was shocked and said that he didn't remember, but he was confused as to why there wasn't any news about the sudden disappearance of the children. This guy also said that he couldn't remember and had been having constant headaches since that day. and he asked if the school should compensate him for that. The police officer sighed and asked Goyong if he didn't remember anything either. Goyong, taken aback, denied it outright. The police officer was confused and asked him if he really hadn't smelled anything strange or heard any noises. Goyong told him no, and suddenly Goyong's stomach growled. The officer let out a laugh, commenting on the truly remarkable sound. Then he asked Goyong if he had an upset stomach. Goyong was startled at that moment. Suddenly, the police officer informed him that now that the interview was over, he had to use the bathroom quickly. Goyong immediately followed, apologized, and said goodbye to the police officer. But when Goyong opened the door, he was suddenly stopped and startled when he saw Kang Jong-bo. Goyong told him that he was worried because he hadn't seen him around and that he had something to say. While he was about to touch him, Kang Jong-bo was so afraid of him. Kang Jong-bo then remembered Goyong had become a monster and suddenly fell to the floor. He told Goyong not to come closer to him, and Goyong was startled at that moment. All of a sudden, the police officer asked Goyong if he hadn't said that he had a stomachache. The officer added that he found time to play pranks with his friend. Then the police officer laughed and told him to put on his pants, stop fooling around, and go to the bathroom quickly. Goyong told him yes, and he was touching his stomach at that moment. Meanwhile, Kang Jong-bo and the police officer began his interview. The police officer asked him for his name, and he replied that it was Kang Jong-bo. The police officer laughed and asked Kang Jong-bo why he was sweating so much. He explained that it was just a simple investigation, so he didn't need to be nervous. Then he told Kang Jong-bo that if he saw anything related to the accident a few days ago, he could feel free to say to him. But Kang Jong-bo was dazed, and in his mind he thought anything was fine, and honestly, everything was fine. Then he remembered that day and what he saw. He was not sure if Goyong was a monster, and Kang Jong-bo was stunned at that moment. But according to him, what was clear was that he was a monster to Goyong. Nonetheless, he told the police officer that he had not seen anything. But the police officer just smiled and asked him if that was indeed the case, and he replied that it was really strange. He thought Kang Jong-bo had definitely seen something, for example, something like a monster. At that moment, Kang Jong-bo was shocked and puzzled. Then the police officer grabbed his shoulder and told him to think about it again carefully. He warned that if he lied, he would get scolded by the officer. Kang Jong-bo felt the pain in his shoulder when the officer touched it. He was confused about what he was feeling. All of a sudden, Sojong arrived, telling the officer to stop and saying that she would ask the questions there. The officer's lips curved into a smile as he addressed Sojong, calling her their heavenly model student and a pure maiden. He even commented that the school uniform seemed to suit her far better than any military attire. Kang Jong-bo was startled and said he hadn't seen anything. But suddenly, Sojong put a talisman on his forehead and asked him what he knew. She told him to reveal everything he knew. Kang Jong-bo was startled at that moment. And then Kang Jong-bo said that Goyong was a monster. Meanwhile, in the comfort room, Goyong was stunned and worried that he had defecated many of the students whom he had eaten. His body trembled and he was confused about what to do. Suddenly, someone wanted to open the door, and Goyong was puzzled. He was startled and worried about who it was until the door was opened and the police officer appeared. The officer then asked Goyong if he had defecated comfortably. Goyong was shocked at that moment. Suddenly, Myeok-gui-sa whispered to him, telling him to be careful. Goyong was stunned when Myeok-gui-sa told him the police officer was not human. He was a superior monster, different from the monsters they had faced before, and he was a high-level monster. All of a sudden, the police officer smirked and asked Goyong who he was talking to, and whether the thing in his stomach was the monster devourer. However, Myeok-gui-sa told him that the police officer was a mighty monster, and he couldn't defeat it now as it was too early. But there was no other choice, and suddenly Goyong released the magic, the monster devourer's unique magic, the old-fashioned magic technique. Even Goyong was shocked as a strange power erupted from his body, lifting him off the ground with sudden, uncontrollable force. Goyong was shocked when he was floating at that moment, but Mao Grisao told him they had to run away from that guy. Goyong was stunned and confused, but they managed to escape. The man was confused that it was an old-fashioned magic technique. He said it was just as dirty as he had heard and called it lowly. While Goyong was flying, he was shocked by what happened. Then he screamed, saying he was scared. Suddenly, he was startled when this man followed him and told him that screaming and yelling were no different from human behavior. Then he grabbed Goyong's face and they fell onto the building. At this point, the monster was still grabbing Goyong's face and Goyong was groaning in pain. The police officer told him that all of them at the Grand Heavenly Jade Emperor might be surprised upon hearing that he defeated the demon teacher. Little did they know that all he had done was defeat a 4th-grade monster. With a dazzling smile, the man declared himself to be on an entirely different plane from his companions and others like them. All of a sudden, Goyong hit the man's eye with a rock, but that man told him that he was struggling like that with just a rock, and he was no different from a real human, lowly, so lowly. But suddenly, Goyong bit his hand and he was startled while looking at it. All of a sudden, Goyong opened his mouth, but the police officer just squeezed it. He told Goyong that he was finally becoming a monster bit by bit. Then he clenched his fist and punched him. Goyong was thrown away, and the other monster just laughed while holding Goyong's mouth. The police officer told him that he stretched and elongated so easily, then punched Goyong many times, and Goyong was startled at that moment. But once again, this monster hit him, and he was thrown far away. Then he was pulled back again and trampled. He smiled and asked if it was already over. According to him, it was so dull. In a sudden brutal turn, he repeatedly stomped on Goyong's face, declaring that this was meant to be the monster's natural enemy. He laughed and said that Goyong didn't even have a funny bone, and that as expected, he was the only demon in hell. Suddenly, he was puzzled when Goyong stabbed him with a small piece of wood, but that monster said that it was flailing around like a human once again. He then recalled the legend. They say that if you eat the Miak Guisa's bead while it is unconscious, you can gain the power of all the monsters it has eaten throughout its entire life. He smiled and said he was curious about whether he should eat it all at once. Suddenly, Sojong and her comrades came and told the superior monster to stop. She then asked him if he had forgotten the command of the Chenok Bodhisattva, and if she should remind him again with that threat. He laughed and said that he was just kidding. He told Sojong that she was so sensitive, but Sojong told him to do only what she had told him to do, unless he wanted his head to explode. This man was stunned and felt scared, but according to him, it was better to hold on to it tightly. Sojong told him to misplace it, and he might end up like Goyong too. Sojong ordered the soldiers to capture Goyong and bring him to the Grand Heavenly Jade Emperor, instructing them to hurry. Meanwhile, Goyong regained consciousness. Suddenly, he was startled and puzzled when his mouth was taped shut. Chenok Bodhisattva told him that he was finally awake and introduced herself to Goyong. Then she said to Goyong that if their children had committed any offenses, he should show some generosity and forgive them. She explained that their country was kind and that although he might not remember, they had been fighting monsters for a very long time. In other words, they were allies. She then hugged Goyong and told him that they must fight together, combining their strength, and that they were not enemies. Goyong was startled at that moment. Bodhisattva then asked him if they should go to the market. According to her, it was understandable that Goyong must not have eaten after facing the demon teacher, and she told him to eat something first. Goyong was shocked, and in his mind he smelled a delicious smell from somewhere. Then he saw this kid, and she was startled. Bodhisattva apologized to him, saying that right then they only had a 5th grade monster. She promised that next time she would prepare a more delicious one. She admitted it wasn't much, but she would be thankful if he savored it. But this kid was begging him to save her, and she was calling her parents. At that moment, Goyong was stunned, and his mouth was about to open, but he stopped it. Goyong came to his senses and asked himself what he was doing to that child. Nevertheless, Bodhisattva just laughed and said that he was saying interesting things. According to her, the monsters imitated human appearance and voices, but there was only one motive behind it, a desire for cannibalism. But Goyong told her that that kid was begging for her life. Suddenly, Bodhisattva loosened the tie to this kid, and she told Goyong that rather than uselessly rambling, it would be better if he saw it for himself. But Goyong was puzzled at that moment. The kid was crying while Bodhisattva pulled her hair. Then, suddenly she pushed her toward Goyong, and he was shocked as he looked at this kid. It was as if Goyong felt pity for the child, a sudden urge to save it from falling overwhelming him. All of a sudden, this kid became a monster with sharp teeth, and she punched Goyong immediately. He was startled and groaning in pain. Suddenly, this monster fell on his body. She then laughed and said that Bisub was a stupid shaman. Untying her restraints with her own hands was her mistake. But she would eat Goyong first, then she would eat her next. Instantly, this monster punched Goyong's face. Then a soldier was shocked and asked Bodhisattva if that wasn't dangerous. But Bodhisattva said that it was fine. She explained that this was an opportunity to evaluate the dish handpicked by Hong Guang Yu to determine whether it was meant for eating by monsters or humans. Unfortunately, this demon was shocked when Goyong blocked her fists. Goyong admitted a momentary lapse in memory, then explained that Miok Wisap's purpose was to save humans by consuming monsters. At that moment, the monster was confused. According to Bodhisattva, it seemed that Hong Guang Yu had chosen quite a good dish. However, Goyong said that he would save the child whose body she took by eating her. Meanwhile, someone put down a heavy bag and he asked the old lady if he could leave it there. Then the old lady thanked him and said that it must have been so heavy, but this man smiled and told her that she didn't have to mention it. Of course, he should help, and he lived in a nice place. However, this man was a psychopathic murderer. He committed murder solely for pleasure. The psychopathic murderer then retrieved an object, observing the serene and quiet air, pointing out the absence of cars and people. At that moment, he was holding a small knife and said that the old lady thought she had come to him first and asked him to move her luggage. He declared that even if she screamed, no one would notice. But this old lady just laughed, holding an axe. She then asked him if he was sure that if she screamed, no one would come. The man was startled and confused at that moment. The old lady told him not to worry about it. She was just carrying the axe in case he needed to make a quick escape. The man was confused, and suddenly there was a hair behind him and it pierced him and he was being killed. She, visibly enraged, confronted the older woman. She questioned why the older woman consistently drew in what she called trash-like beings, desperately asking if there was not a proper human being to be found anywhere. The old lady wasn't entirely sure what was meant by a proper human being. According to this demon, the plateau phase of the Hellgate numbers had been reached, so now humans could no longer raise their numbers. Then she told the old lady that from now on she should bring her high-quality humans filled with vitality and spiritual energy. The old lady told her she understood and that she would try her best. All of a sudden, a goblin came, and he brought to the hell demon a human and said that he caught him. The demon appeared utterly bewildered, questioning the strange sight before him. He wondered aloud about the unappetizing child and if this was some deliberate act of rebellion. But this man smiled when he recognized it as the hell demon, and he said it was impressive and so cool. He exclaimed that not only had he encountered a wrestling goblin, but that now it was the hell demon. At that moment, he was holding a book of the Creepy Aura Encyclopedia, and as he expected, everything written in this book was real. Nonetheless, this goblin said sorry to the hell demon and told her that he would kill him right then. But suddenly the hell demon got the book and said to wait for a moment. Then she laughed and said that whoever wrote this did a pretty convincing job. According to this kid, after reading that book, he continued to search for monsters. Then he told her that he would sacrifice his soul and body. He was begging her to turn him into a monster too, and he promised he would work hard. But the hell demon told him that she didn't really want his pathetic soul, but still thanked him as she pulled a piece of its hair. She came up with the idea to eat high-quality humans using him, and the hell demon blew a piece of her hair to the kid. Going back to Goyong, he told the monster that he would save the child whose body he took by eating her. This monster was stunned, and in an instant Goyong ate her. Then, in a sudden burst of enthusiasm, Bodhisattva clapped her hands. She declared that he was indeed great, just as she had always expected. But Goyong was confused, and he asked her why she was doing that to him. Then Bodhisattva smiled and said as she had told him that they were allies. She promised they would continue to provide him with monsters so he could eat until he could fight the hell demon. Meanwhile, at the school, according to Goyong, the grandmother also mentioned the hell demon at the beginning. But this grandmother was called Chinook Bodhisattva. He was confused about whether he could trust her. Suddenly, this fat guy was behind him and he called him over. Then he waved his hand and told him to bring him some bread since he was hungry. He was going to slap Goyong, but all of a sudden Goyong quickly grabbed the guy's hand before it landed on him. This man was shocked and he clenched his fist. Then he asked Goyong why he was blocking it, but Goyong was startled and said he hadn't meant to block him. Suddenly, this guy released his punch, and luckily Goyong managed to dodge it effortlessly. All of a sudden, he grabbed Goyong's clothes and asked him if he really wanted to die. But Goyong was shocked and he said sorry to him. According to him, he didn't mean to do that on purpose. At that moment, he was mad and speechless. Then suddenly the bully told him that he would buy the bread. Then Goyong was startled and the bully turned his back, saying he would go and take a look. He told Goyong to be careful. Nevertheless, he was stunned and confused about why his body trembled so much, especially when he looked at Goyong's mouth, curious about the memories that came to mind. At that moment, they were drawn into a beautiful light, flying into it. However, upon returning to Goyong, he was stunned and confused about why his classmate hadn't hit him this time. Suddenly, he was startled when he heard someone come, and it was Kang Jong-bo. Then Goyong greeted him, but Kang Jong-bo said goodbye and left. While he was walking, Jong-bo was dazed and without realizing it, ended up avoiding Goyong. When he spoke to Goyong, he felt as though he had heard something he couldn't handle, so he was scared. Suddenly, he was shocked when he saw something strange in front of him. Then he went out, and while he was walking, he was uncertain whether he was truly losing his mind. Not only were his memories strange, but he also saw strange things now. Kang Jong-bo was worried about what had happened to him. Suddenly, he was shocked when he saw these people messing around because of a fat man. They said this man looked so good, like a model. Then suddenly, a lady approached him and told him that he was so cool. She asked him if he would like to hang out together. He smiled and asked her if she wanted to have him, but she should be prepared. And now she would be trapped in his swamp, struggling for the rest of her life. However, going back to what had happened before that, the hell demon told the fat man that she had implanted a lustful spirit in his body. He would appear as a handsome man in the eyes of all the humans within a radius. Especially women would fall in love with him at just a glance. This man smiled, and he thanked the hell demon. These two ladies were thrilled, and the lady on the right said that if it were a swamp, she would like it. Then he told them to follow him. He would show them a hellish paradise. Nonetheless, Kang Jong-bo was shocked and confused about whether that person was really handsome, but he was worried if he had really gone crazy. All of a sudden, he was surprised when he saw that the fat man had become a monster. He was confused about what was in it. If it were a monster, he wanted to tell them not to follow, and he planned to report to the police, but he was confused about whether they would believe him and worried about what to do. According to him, he needed to save those people. The corpulent man, accompanied by two young women, stepped into a section cordoned off by a sign that clearly stated it was scheduled for redevelopment and demolition. As they walked, a man smiled and declared that monsters were amazing. He thought of offering these individuals to the hell demon, anticipating praise in return. All of a sudden, he was shocked when someone blocked their way. Then this man gritted his teeth, and according to him, it had been a while since they had last spoken. He told that fat guy he guessed he was such an unlucky guy. This guy was holding a baseball bat, and he laughed at that moment. Then he told the fat guy that just by looking at his face it was obvious that he was a punk who relied on his looks. This man looked afraid, and he asked them what was wrong. Suddenly Jongbo told him to leave those girls, and he called him a monster. According to Jongbo, he called all the gangsters in the area who were part of the group chat on his phone, and they all came. Nonetheless, this man asked him what the big deal was, and this fatty guy asked him if he had come there to mess with him. But this fat guy was irritated by the cigarette smoke. Then the front man said he thought Kang Jongbo was capable and powerful because he gathered everyone, but it turned out he was just a loser. This man asked Kang Jongbo why he had called all of them. According to him, this fat guy looked fine, but he was downright shabby. At that moment, Kang Jongbo was shocked and confused, wondering whether the monster was scared and whether he had just seen it wrong. However, this man said that they would start by taking off this fat guy's clothes. The fat guy was startled and asked why his clothes were, and suddenly he was slapped by a gangster who told him to take them off now or he would kill him. Then he said that he would let them go back home, but if they reported this, they would be in trouble too. This fat guy was stunned and in his mind confused about why he was not becoming the monster he had always wanted to be. He was curious if those guys were terrifying. According to him, since he was young, he had been bullied and tormented so much that his body reflexively weakened and lost strength. Nonetheless, he took off his clothes, and this guy started insulting him about being a good boy, despite the food and especially his body ratio. The man took up his phone as if he were recording everything, and he commanded the fat kid to take off everything, his clothes until he was just wearing his underwear. This fat man was speechless, and he felt embarrassed at that moment. Suddenly, Kang Jongbo told them to stop, and he thought it was enough, but this man told him that they hadn't started yet. Then Kang Jongbo was startled when his friends told him he was on a different level than they were. He clenched his fist, confused about what to do while he struggled to regain his memory, and told them to stop. This fat man was trembling because of fear. Out of nowhere, a voice startled him, questioning his actions and the strange sight of a human taunting a monster. He was curious about who it was, but there was a black flame on his head all of a sudden. Then this monster told him it would be fun to watch for a bit, but he couldn't stand it anymore. That monster was about to go out of his head, and these gangsters were all shocked. These monsters came out, and he told this fat guy to leave them to him, and he would completely possess their bodies. These gangsters were shocked and confused about it and questioned what the smoke they smelled was. According to this guy, it smelled bad, but suddenly he was startled. He was curious if this was some kind of cosplay, and he really looked like it. Nevertheless, this fatty man, who was one of their own, told the leader of the gangster that he had liked him for a long time, a lot. Then he asked him if he would go out with him. Young Gya was shocked and asked what the hell he was talking about, and he might feel like he was going to puke. Surprisingly, he said he loved him too, had always thought he was cute, even with his fat belly, and kissed him on the lips. Suddenly, love filled the air as everyone present expressed their affection for one another, and Kang Jongbo was shocked. He was confused about what was wrong with everyone and why they were behaving in that manner. Nonetheless, this monster said he couldn't believe the ultimate aphrodisiac fog didn't work on Kang Jongbo, who was a pretty strong-willed individual with a resilient spirit. All of a sudden, he was heading to Kang Jongbo and he choked him. He told Kang Jongbo that the Hell Demon would be pleased. At that moment, Kang Jongbo was groaning in pain, and his opponent was still choking him and was determined to end his life. Kang Jongbo's scream tore through the air, raw and desperate as he struggled to breathe. The monster froze for a moment, sensing a sudden shift in the atmosphere, then looked up and a guy fell on top of him. He slammed a powerful punch into the ground between them, forcing Kang Jongbo and the monster apart. With his knuckles pressed into the earth, the guy warned the beast not to touch his friend. As he lifted his head, the dust cleared, revealing that it was Goyong. Before it happened, when Goyong was still with Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva showed her 2 fingers and said there were 2 ways to develop and increase the monster hunter's power. First, one could increase the strength of the monster hunter by consuming more monsters or undergoing training. Second, one needed to discover and train new skills. Bodhisattva was serious, sitting in the lotus position in front of Goyong, and she asked how he had fought so far. Goyong replied that his mouth was expanding on its own, and he had no control over it. Then Bodhisattva said that his opponents were weak, so they allowed him to do this. Bodhisattva clarified that the monster devourer Myeokwisak could only absorb monsters that were weaker than him. Conversely, a strong monster could only be eaten if it was first defeated in battle. To accomplish this, he desperately needed to train the most basic technique. Goyong's eyes widened when he heard those words from Bodhisattva, until Bodhisattva revealed it was the 9 directions technique. A sudden gush of gases, fire, and light poured out of his pants once again. This was the technique. It compressed the stomach's contents and energy, and the body pushed it out through the back hole. He swung at the monster as his hand grew larger. Goyong realized what Bodhisattva said. If he continued and mastered it, he would be able to push out the monster through every possible hole in his body. To begin with, he would focus on practicing his attack, using his propulsion force and energy to reach the monster quickly and hit it. The beast flew up, and a small structure of blood poured out of his nose. Then Goyong jumped from above and struck several more blows at the monster. Goyong used the release of gases technique once again. The monster's face slammed into the concrete, which crumbled from the impact. Then Goyong delivered several more forceful pushes, sending the demon flying along the wall and up toward the building. High above, the demon shrieked, a maelstrom of confusion. It could not comprehend the incredible speed of the assault, utterly unable to evade the relentless torrent of blows. Goyong considered following Kang Jong-bo to talk about what had been happening all this time, but instead he re-encountered a monster. Goyong looked at Kang Jong-bo, who was lying unconscious on the floor. He struck the beast a few more times and opened his mouth, increasing it as wide as possible, trying to swallow the monster. Unfortunately, it didn't hit, and the monster dodged, then shot him in the mouth. He hurried a little. Once more, he tried out new skills. He realized that he had failed. The 9 directions magic technique did not work. Goyong began to panic. Then the words of Bodhisattva echoed in his mind. He needed to be careful if the ability burned his energy and stomach contents as fuel. Then, if he were not skilled enough, it would be the most wasteful technique. Just as Bodhisattva warned, something like this could happen at high speed. In that instant, he ran out of energy as happened. Having missed his final blow and received a fierce fist to the face, he began to fall. The monster struck him several times. After landing, he was scared, saying he did not think he had met the monster devourer, and his face showed a smile as he clasped his hands in prayer. The demon monster said that maybe this was for the best. This was a chance for him to receive a reward from the hell demoness. He called out, "Colorful flesh arrow." His hands glowed and his fingers bent into a shape that seemed to resemble a bow. If the arrow found its target, then the enemy would love him more than anything in the world. His hand, which had become a bowstring, tightened and his fingers seemed to be an arrow. The monster's terrifying projectile was also known as Cupid's arrow. Goyong sat on the floor watching in horror and realizing that he absolutely had to avoid the attack. Mustering every ounce of his remaining will, he decided to try his technique one last time. The demon monster's finger, which had served as the arrow, flew from the bow and whistled past Goyong. Goyong's technique worked. He took off and successfully dodged the first shot. However, he was utterly exhausted. The demon monster sneered, announcing that he had only shot 1 arrow and he still had 6 arms, and asked what the use of those was. All 6 of the monster's hands immediately turned into bows. Goyong was unable to evade the onslaught, and 5 arrows slammed into his chest. The arrows instantly caught fire and began to melt his clothes. Goyong was engulfed in hellish pain. His body was burning. He screamed as he collapsed to the ground. The demon monster approached him and explained that at first true love was supposed to be hot and painful, like fire. The beast smiled, closely watching Goyong. Goyong felt a strange, terrifying sensation as if his heart was breaking, and knew he had to stop looking at the demon monster. Then Goyong closed his eyes, refusing to look at the demon monster. But the demon monster approached him, grabbed his eyes with his claws, and said that this would not happen, and that on the contrary, he was his most beloved creature, and that he must look him straight in the eye. At that moment, a thick yellow smoke began emanating from the demon, which Goyong involuntarily inhaled. The demon monster said he now belonged to him. Then Goyong's eyes lit up and tears flowed from them. He made incomprehensible sounds, and the beast hung over him from above, leaning on his many arms and legs. Yellow smoke enveloped them more and more. Goyong screamed in agony. His back arched and his head slammed repeatedly against the floor. The demon monster asked how he saw him now. With each passing moment, Goyong leaned further into the monster devourer, his voice echoing a desperate cry for his most beloved being. The demon monster questioned the person's identity, his hands grasping Goyong's face. Goyong replied, screaming that he was the most delicious food. Still screaming, his face suddenly changed, and he cried out the name Yum-Ra. Neither eye nor mouth was visible, only black spots lay there. The hair was disheveled and acquired a bluish tint. The demon monster was stunned. It stammered, unable to understand what was happening or what Goyong was saying. Suddenly, the demon monster received a devastating punch directly in the center of the chest. It flew backward, blood pouring from its mouth, its eyes beginning to roll back. A new figure rose from the ground. It was tall, muscular, but thin, with many wrinkles, black and white eyes, and dark hair. The demon, still spewing blood, demanded to know the identity of the person in question. Before him appeared a tall, muscular, but thin man with dark stripes on his face, long wavy hair, and his nails had grown into sharp claws, and in his hands he held the 2 hands of the demon monster, which he tore off upon impact. Sojong burst through a doorway and shouted to Bodhisattva that they had problems with the monster devourer. The older woman replied that she was already watching the drone's video, proving that surveillance was indeed everywhere. Both were dressed in traditional Korean clothes. Bodhisattva, who sat in the lotus position in front of the panoramic window, holding the phone in both hands, said it meant the monster devourer hidden within Goyong had emerged as a full-fledged monster. Sojong, her face suddenly etched with fright, could only ask, puzzled, about what was hidden. Then the Bodhisattva replied that when monsters usually took over a human body, they consumed not only the body but also the person's soul. She looked at her phone, which showed Goyong had turned into. However, Bodhisattva said that the monster devourer did not do this and hid behind a human soul. The drone flew over the city and captured what happened. producing footage that reality television producers could only dream of. This was because he was being chased from the heavenly realm as punishment for the sin of devouring Yom Ra, the great king of hell. Then Bodhisattva's face grew sharper and declared that Yom Ra had only come out now because of the lust condition, as he mistook the lustful spirit for the great hell king Yom Ra. An unusual instrument, a ritual item with bells and red ribbons, was now ringing in front of her, creating a rather festive atmosphere for such a horrific revelation. Yom Ra, who was the strongest among the monsters he had ever eaten, now wanted to eat him once again. The transformed man grabbed the demon monster's severed hand and devoured it without hesitation. And now he wanted to eat him once again, and a dark negative violet energy emanated from him, spreading throughout the entire alley. The demon monster was stunned, unable to comprehend who the transformed man Goyong before him really was. The monster devourer growled in anger, saying the flesh of the demon monster was not tasty. He added that Yom Ra tasted far better, and demanded more. The demon monster noted that he did not know what he wanted, but he was dangerous for the hell demon. The demon monster seemed to be saying that even if he had to use all his energy, he would make up for his mistake. He took a fighting pose, radiating anger, and spikes sprang from his arms and legs. Many white spikes shot out from the monster's body and flew toward the monster devourer at incredible speed. The monster devourer let out a thunderous cry, calling out Yom Ra's name. His mouth opened impossibly wide, a gaping void with nothing visible within, and in a terrifying instant, he absorbed every single spike. The demon was in utter shock, his mouth open, his eyes wide in disbelief, and he asked himself if he could consume them. The arrows of lust. The mouth on the monster devourer's face began to tighten, leaving only some streaks. The demon monster looked on with an incomprehensible expression as the monster devourer's mouth vanished. In the next instant, half of the monster's body, several arms, and one leg were violently torn off. The demon monster shrieked in agony, demanding to know where the source of its pain originated, and then screamed again as the second part of its body came under attack. The demon monster realized that something was devouring him, but he didn't understand what it was. The demon monster's body began to fade away, dissolving into the air as its form slowly vanished. The older woman Bodhisattva was still sitting near the window and told number 23 to go to the monster devourer and stop him. A man in a suit wearing a gold headband stood beside her, exuding a welcoming, positive aura that felt oddly out of place given the carnage they were watching. The old lady Bodhisattva said she allowed him to release his powers entirely, and the man suddenly perked up, asking her if he could use all his power. His voice betrayed some mockery, as if he were just a punk trying to show off. To which the older woman Bodhisattva replied that he must bring the monster devourer safe and sound. It was prohibited to cause him significant harm, suggesting a clear favorite in the room. The man in the suit pointed a finger at his head, asked whether she was being biased, loved him too much, and wondered aloud whether the monster devourer, Goyong, was her own grandson. The old lady said that to stop the hell demon, they needed a monster devourer, and he was much more critical than someone like him. The man in the suit replied that he understood, but he sounded entirely unconvinced. He further declared that he would ultimately be the one to sever the hell demon's head, a fact he urged her not to forget. So-young turned to the Bodhisattva, confused and curious, and asked whether King Yom Ra was the supreme judge in hell. Fatigue appeared on the older woman Bodhisattva's face. Then So-young continued, questioning how the devourer, an ordinary monster, would dare challenge him. The older woman Bodhisattva, without turning to look at the girl, answered that the Myo-Gwaisa was an evil spirit living at the bottom of hell. So-young didn't understand and asked Bodhisattva, curiously, whether being a bottom demon meant he was the lowest level among all the monsters. Then Bodhisattva said she was right. Those creatures have no self-awareness. They could only sense an appetite craving for food, a terrifying lack of ambition. Bodhisattva still looked at So-young. A picture appeared before them of an incomprehensible monster that consumed flesh. The older woman explained that they lived at the bottom of hell, eating corpses and excrement of other monsters. A strange creature with holes in its face and eyes continued to dig its claws into the flesh of whatever it was devouring. A strange creature swallowed almost the entire skull, driven mad by hunger. They ate creatures of their own species in the lowest grade part of hell, driven by mad hunger. They stuffed whole arms and legs in beside themselves, and they were the weakest janitors in hell who ate each other. A truly unappetizing sight, even for hell. They made strange sounds and also ate small ones of their own kind until their bellies swelled enormously, and veins appeared on them. These creatures could not excrete what they ate because the Creator had not provided them with the necessary anatomy, so all they could do was eat non-stop. They didn't live long because they invariably died when their stomachs burst, and indeed one of the stomachs burst, leaking blood everywhere. But one day, a long time ago, while this creature was eating some flesh, a young demon with dark hair was deep in thought, his eyes reflecting a quiet intensity. Suddenly, he said that he wanted to eat something tastier than his usual meal, while he was holding a sharp, pointed bone in his hands. It was strange because while evil spirits possessed a thirst to eat more, they could not have a desire. The young demon was sitting on his knees with a huge belly and a bone in his hand. and although the young spirit was confused by his first unusual thought, he continued to think about it. The young demon wondered what he should do to eat something more tasty. He was still looking at the island of the bone stick and he continued to think about it. The monster wondered what he should do to eat something more tasty. The same question, how echoed in his mind repeatedly, haunting his every thought. While the young demon wondered how he could achieve this, another lower-grade spirit demon attempted to kill him and suddenly grabbed him by the neck and head. In that exact second, the young demon with the bone whirled around and inserted it straight through the chin and palate into the head of his relative. The young demon realized that to eat more delicious food, he must not die. The two stood still, the attacker with the bone stuck in his head, and the young spirit standing in front of him. As the realization sank in, if he died, he would not be able to eat anything, so he must live. The young demon raised his head and looked at the ceiling of the septic tank at the bottom of hell. There was a hole from which the corpses and excrement of monsters fell. It resembled a circle with red veins and blood poured from it. Two corpses fell from a great height. One had two heads, and the other was missing part of an arm and a leg. He looked at the falling corpses and then at the scattered bones of various monsters they had eaten, spines, ribs, and so on. And the young demon realized what he needed to do. He deliberately pierced his own buttock with the bone in his hand. He screamed in pain as he made his own passage, and so, the young demon, whose eyes began to shed black tears, started to eat and defecate indiscriminately. This was the young demon who one day devoured King Yeom-ra. Under a bright, large crescent moon set against a dark, almost black sky, there was a large crater. In the center of the crater stood a staircase and a throne, on which a man in a red robe with a white and blue ribbon sat. He was barefoot. In front of him stood the long-haired evil spirit, the devourer. The demon monster's severed head, which Goyong had been fighting, lay motionless on the floor. It kept muttering that it was a worthless and wretched demon, its voice fading with each word. The monster devourer's hand reached for the demon monster's head. He took it and started eating. He opened his mouth wide, small fangs appearing as he began to swallow the head whole, a truly gourmet experience in monster terms. Standing still, number 23 asked the monster devourer if it was delicious. Number 23 went on to say that he knew the monster devourer had caused trouble there and was now in serious trouble. A faint smile crossed his face as he stood there, calm and composed. He revealed that the grandmother Bodhisattva had allowed him to use all his strength against him. Number 23, who was once a police officer, looked at the monster devourer's physique and remarked that when he had seen him before, he was no different from a human. Plain and boring, but now he looked genuinely intrigued, his tone dripping with sarcasm as he complimented how interesting the monster devourer had become. High praise from a high-level jerk. At that exact moment, half of number 23's body vanished, as if devoured by an unseen force, slowly dissolving into the air and suddenly reappeared above the monster devourer. However, fragments of his dissolving body still lingered behind. The monster devourer stood firm, his lean frame motionless and his face devoid of emotion, still lacking a mouth. He challenged the monster devourer, telling him to eat as much as he desired to his heart's content. Looking into the sky, the monster devourer saw several dozen and maybe hundreds of beings identical to number 23, floating freely above him. The original number 23 raised the question of whether the devourer was originally just a demon. He had thought the monster devourer was an outstanding individual, but he turned out to be a low-grade creature that merely accumulated excrement. The monster devourer remained silent, his eyes expressing no emotion. Number 23 remembered Bodhisattva, reminding him that the monster devourer was a vital part of the plan to fight the hell demon. Suddenly, countless versions of number 23 surged through the air, flying straight toward the monster devourer. Instantly, their arms began to crumble and tear away from their bodies. Almost all of them were destroyed except for one. This single surviving number 23 boasted that he himself could kill someone like the hell demon alone. Number 23 seized the moment and struck the monster devourer with a powerful punch, aiming to bring him down. His last shot did not have time to finish the job as half of the number 23's body disappeared that exact second, and his hand rolled back. Number 23 proudly declared that he was the strongest monster of them all. Suddenly, a fist shot out of the monster devourer's chest. Right in the center, number 23 continued his declaration that was the majestic heavenly lord, or the great sage equal to heaven. He instantly appeared behind the devourer and was able to pierce through the spirit's chest with his hand. With a crazy look and a half-smile on his face, he shouted that he was the descendant of Son Goku, a claim that certainly explained his over-the-top confidence. Number 23's fist went entirely through the monster's chest and spine, yet the monster devourer didn't even bend over. Number 23 said he was certain the monster devourer wouldn't die so easily. He added that at least he wouldn't get scolded by the old lady Bodhisattva, which was clearly his biggest concern, and his gaze suddenly became frightened. He looked at his hand, which began to disappear from the monster's body, as the monster devourer's chest began to tighten at an unprecedented speed. With a crazy smile, number 23 looked at his dissolving hand, saying that someone like the devourer really was a tough guy. Number 23 was astonished that the monster devourer was eating even his hand, which had gotten stuck in the creature's body. Suddenly, the monster devourer turned around, waving his arm, and the demon's head flew to the side as his body slowly descended. The head of number 23, flying through the air, could still speak and did so to thank the monster devourer for finding something. However, the monster devourer bit the upper part of number 23's head, yet number 23, whether with an invisible mouth or a mouth on the body, kept talking. The monster devourer still had only one mouth with which he could eat. Suddenly, a demon's foot struck the monster devourer's face. However, the devourer hadn't had time to take the blow. The flying head continued. He could only eat one thing at a time. Suddenly, out of nowhere, many number 23 duplicates appeared, which began to hit the devourer on all parts of the body. The devourer stood utterly still, unmoving. His hair still blew in the wind, his head tilted slightly from the blows to his face, eyes, and neck. The flying number 23, with a bite on his head, moving swiftly alongside his duplicates, explained the new strategy. In other words, if number 23 created more doubles than the monster devourer could consume, he could finally overwhelm him. And if number 23 continued his relentless assault without pause, he believed he could finally bring the monster devourer down. The doubles of number 23 continued to strike him on the head, the back of the head, the chest, the stomach, and so on. The devourer did not react, making no sounds and expressing no pain, demonstrating an almost unbelievable level of monster stoicism. The clones of number 23 began to jump on top of the monster devourer, simultaneously trampling his head into the ground with their feet. The stones beneath him split and flew to the side, and the sound of the impact echoed across the entire street. Number 23 had crushed the monster devourer's head with his boots until only one eye was visible. Number 23 said that he should be grateful that he was not killed, if only it weren't for the older woman Bodhisattva's mandate. The monster devourer's remaining eye suddenly glowed white. Number 23 was terrified, not expecting this, and didn't understand what happened. The monster devourer screamed and his body turned completely white. This white scream began to destroy all the number 23 clones, and they rapidly disappeared. A purple dome covered the area. The two gangsters who had been violently kissing and declaring their love began to come to their senses. They shouted about how disgusted they were and what they had been doing to each other. A hilarious, if uncomfortable, case of buyer's remorse. One person yelled that they were all crazy. One of the guys had tears streaming down his face and began to wipe his lips, saying he was going to be sick. Another gangster beside them asked why the other gangster had been looking at him weirdly. Others shouted to shut up. Some confessed it was their first kiss. They were all shocked, and some started beating others for their actions. Someone even muttered that it hadn't actually been that bad. One guy, raising his fist, demanded to know how long they had been coveting his innocence. Kang Jongbo sat on the floor and regained consciousness. He grabbed his head and looked at the crowd, thinking everyone had come to. However, he distinctly remembered seeing Goyong throw him and the monster away. Something caught his attention from above, and an explosion rippled down the alley. He looked up at the sky, where bright stripes like the northern lights glowed in different colors. Blood poured from number 23's mouth as he realized what had hit him. He recognized it as the 9 directions technique, a move he knew could only have been unleashed from the monster devourer's lower body. He blocked the blow by crossing his arms over his chest to deflect the attack. He mused that the so-called technique of wind release was not limited to the rear, realizing with surprise that it could also be unleashed through the mouth. Buildings behind him were destroyed. His clothes were shredded, and there were abrasions on his face. He stood in a fighting pose and continued saying how disgusting and dirty it was. The monster devourer stood before him, his body still muscular and gaunt, his hair fluttering upward in the wind. White smoke came from his eyes and mouth. His clothes were also a little tattered, but his face began to crumble, revealing normal human skin underneath. Small pieces of skin fell to the ground. Then number 23 continued, admitting that his transformation seemed to be wearing off. His eyes grew wild, reflecting a desperate flicker of hope. Number 23 confessed that he had experienced such a strong technique without the devourer even eating a couple of monsters first. The monster devourer's eyes continued to glow more intensely. Number 23 thought that the monster devourer's strength must be fading. He clenched his fist tightly, preparing to launch another powerful punch. At that moment, number 23 waved his hand, raised his fist, and suddenly realized something was eating it again. He said that if the devourer wanted to consume him to regain strength, then he would gladly let him try. Because after all, he was the real one, not a clone. He charged straight toward the monster devourer with full force. He flew towards the devourer, hitting him in the face with all his strength. A sound wave spread from the blow. Number 23's face twisted into madness, his eyes blazing with pure rage. He shouted that the monster devourer would not be able to consume him that easily. Number 23 thought that he needed to change his strategy. Instead of satisfying the monster devourer's hunger with his clones, it would be better to encourage him to use his unique energy-draining ability. The eyes and mouth of the monster devourer began to emit flashes of bright light. His monstrous face continued to crumble and take on human features. Number 23, smiling, made a few more blows, sure this would exhaust his foe completely. The devourer again fired a powerful light wave from his mouth and eyes, throwing number 23 far into the sky. As the smoke stopped coming from his mouth, the devourer's face continued to crumble. Number 23 remarked that the monster devourer must be very hungry. His own face was bruised, his hands torn and bleeding, and he assumed the monster devourer had clearly weakened from using such immense power. The monster devourer's head began to split, and through the cracks, Goyong's face was visible. His whole body began to crack, breaking apart like a plaster figure, a theatrical exit. Number 23 smiled with his snow-white teeth, confident that with this remaining strength, he estimated that the monster devourer could only use the remaining 9 directions technique one more time at best. Number 23 regained his balance and sprinted forward with sharp precision. He soared through the air, attempting to strike the monster devourer, who merely looked up at him with a calm, unbothered gaze. But then, a powerful kick hit the monster devourer in the chest, knocking him back, and he gathered all his power. The monster devourer gathered all his remaining strength and began to bite off his own hand. Number 23 was shocked by what the monster devourer was doing until he realized that the monster devourer was compensating for his lack of power by eating his own flesh, a rather extreme form of power snacking. Blood dripped from the devourer's hands, and his eyes glowed blue. After eating his own flesh, he screamed again, and the released beam of light struck directly at number 23, and also in all directions, sweeping across the city, and destroying many buildings. Many ruins lay scattered around the devourer and the demon. Number 23 whispered in horror with burst capillaries in his eyes that this low-ranking monster dared to harm him, the descendant of Son Goku. Half of his torso was missing, his shirt was torn, and he was left with severe lacerations. His face expressed pure rage and discontent. Meanwhile, the monster devourer began to crumble completely, surrendering the body to Goyong. It now had no arms, but it wasn't bleeding. It was just human skin. Smoke drifted from Goyong's mouth. He sat on his knees, head bowed, unconscious among the ruins. Number 23 said he had already changed his mind. No matter what the older woman Bodhisattva said, he would kill him. Goyong was still unconscious. Number 23 grew angry, veins bulging on his face, and he declared that after all, he just wanted to stop the hell demon. Black smoke came out of his arm and his veins stood out. Then suddenly, his eyes widened. He saw a guy Kangjongbo standing not far from them, positioned directly in front of Goyong. Number 23 asked him who he was. Kangjongbo wasn't afraid and still stood firmly. Number 23 continued, asking if he truly desired death. A bead of sweat trickled down Kangjongbo's face, a silent testament to his unease. Kangjongbo remembered how Goyong had pushed him away from the monster, throwing them in different directions, and also how Goyong's fist had hit the ground. He remembered his childhood friend Goyong telling him not to dare touch his friend. He also remembered Goyong continuing to protect him. Kangjongbo also recalled Goyong giving him his shirt. Despite previously tormenting him, he still considered Kangjongbo his friend to the end. He finally realized that Goyong was not a monster at all. Kangjongbo started to clench his fist, even though he was sweating with uncertainty about whether he could protect Goyong. Kangjongbo bravely faced number 23 and told him not to touch his friend. Number 23 let out a harsh laugh, questioning him about his friend. Number 23 asked Kangjongbo whether he knew what he was talking about, specifically whether a human and a monster could be friends. He laughed even harder and said frankly, it was time for lower beings to be together. More dark smoke came from number 23's hand. Number 23 struck with all his might, then leapt onto Kangjongbo, snarling that they would all die together with Goyong. Kangjongbo put his hands forward, attempting to block the demon's blow. A powerful electrical discharge passed through him. Saliva flowed from his mouth, and he began to reel backward. Then number 23 smiled cruelly and said that was what happened to those who didn't understand the situation, yet dared to interfere in their fight. A second later, he realized his error and looked at his hands. His fingers were bent and broken in different directions, a shocking occupational hazard for a powerful demon. Complete bewilderment washed over him as he questioned why. Without warning, a brutal fist connected with his face. Kangjongbo was incredibly fast and threw number 23 back several meters with a loud thud. Number 23 lay on the ground, still wondering how a human could do such a thing. Kangjongbo, now looking at his own glowing hand, didn't understand what had happened. His eyes widened as his body began to feel strangely different. Multicolored ribbons appeared around his hand, and the light continued to move. Colored luminous ribbons began to envelop Jongbo's entire body. He continued to glow, his hair rising in the light breeze created by the ribbons. His eyes began to roll back. He repeated that his body was somehow strange and that he did not know what he had done. Then number 23 tried to hit him with his one good hand, since the other half of his body still bore a massive gaping wound. Number 23 said Kangjongbo seemed to be an unusual person. Kangjongbo immediately blocked the blow. A woman's voice cut in, telling number 23 that he had forgotten her order to bring Goyong back safe and sound. Number 23 widened his eyes as he recognized the voice and realized it was the old lady Bodhisattva. She asked if he truly wished for death, her anger flaring at his audacious disregard for her wishes. There were no pupils in Kangjongbo's eyes, only whites, as the Bodhisattva used his body to speak with number 23, scolding him for daring to act on his own and disobey her orders under pretenses. Number 23 began to grow angry, his face tense and his lips tightly pursed. He shouted at her not to call him a fake, declaring that he didn't take orders from anyone either. The old lady Bodhisattva said that it seemed like he had not yet come to his senses. With Kang Jong-bo's body, she clasped his hands in supplication and began to recite spells in the voice of an older woman Bodhisattva. Number 23 screamed, telling his grandmother not to do it, as the blood vessels in his eyes likely burst. The older woman Bodhisattva continued to recite the spell. The eyes of Jong-bo and the faithful woman glowed with white light, practically merging into a single light. She cast several more spells. The golden band on number 23's head glowed and began to press painfully on his skull, a classic case of headache by divine intervention. The demon fell to his knees, shouted, and begged for forgiveness. Streams of blood flowed from number 23's nose, mouth, and eyes. He admitted he had made a mistake and begged her to stop. The old lady Bodhisattva questioned him sharply, asking whether he meant he could face the hell demon alone, or if he seriously thought he could become the main character in Son Goku. She delivered the crushing truth that he was just a tool created through genetic engineering. The demon knelt, glaring from beneath his brow at Kang Jong-bo. His headband stopped glowing, and he wiped the blood from his face. The old lady Bodhisattva continued the rebuke. Since he was an instrument, he needed to act like one. He would do as he was told, or she could tear his head off at any moment. Kang Jong-bo then began to lift Goyong. The old lady Bodhisattva continued, telling them to go home. When they returned, they would have to learn to control Goyong's power. Kang Jong-bo put the still unconscious monster devourer Goyong behind him. She assured him he had nothing to worry about, as she would explain everything in detail. The demon was utterly upset, still sitting on his knees. Kang Jong-bo, carrying Goyong on his back, walked silently past number 23 on the road at night. On the roof of one of the buildings stood the Hell Demon, wearing a dress made of hair, a dubiously fashionable choice, accompanied by an older woman in human form and a wrestling goblin. The older woman asked the demoness if she would just let them go. The Hell Demon replied that there was no need for a battle now. Madness flashed in her eyes, and a terrifying smile crossed her face. The Hell Demon was sure they would meet soon anyway because she had sent them an invitation. She stood on the roof watching without blinking as Kang Jong-bo carried Goyong. A massive building with panoramic windows stood in the middle of the street in the clear weather. Goyong was lying on a bed, dressed in a long-sleeve shirt and pants, his head resting on a pillow. He was unconscious. His face showed no abrasions and he seemed to have sustained no damage whatsoever. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to an ethereal space. A man with a red short haircut sat on a stone throne, wearing a red robe with ribbons flowing from it. His eyes were closed. Flashback from the underworld. This man, King Yim-ra, was speaking about the amazing evil spirit, the monster devourer, who devoured and defecated everything and everyone. He commended the creature for rising from the very bottom of hell. The man sat under a large crescent moon that illuminated his throne and the staircase leading up to it. An evil spirit stood before him. Yim-ra continued to speak, saying the demon had reached the very top, where he, Yim-ra, was located. He called the devourer an interesting and amazing creature. He said that if the devourer consumed everything he saw, in the end, he would be the only one left in that world. Suddenly, the Demon King rose and flew over the throne. His eyes burned red and his hair fluttered through the air like flames of fire. He claimed to be the creator of the devourer. Yim-ra called the devourer a pitiful and lonely creature, saying he didn't even have friends. Yellow and red stripes lit up on the king's face like tongues of flame. His eyes lined with black eyeliner and his beautifully decorated clothes fluttered in the wind. Goyong made a couple of sounds and his eyes began to open. Sojung was nearby and said into the radio that he had come to his senses. The response came back. He was to report to the old lady Bodhisattva. Sojung was kneeling on the floor next to the bed, dressed in traditional Korean clothes, a white shirt and a blue skirt. Goyong abruptly jumped up and asked where he was, his eyes wide with fear and misunderstanding. He began to explain that he had fought that monster and the demon of lust, but before he could finish, Sojung interrupted him. She said the demon of lust had been expelled, and they were inside the building of a group called Chonak. Sojung thought that a monster could regenerate its body completely only if its head were intact, but she had seen the demon's arm fully recover in just 4 hours. She looked at Goyong's hand. It was an ordinary human hand, though only a few hours ago there had been nothing there. Goyong asked her if she had happened to see a long-haired boy in a school uniform named Kang Jong-bo, and said he was his friend. Suddenly, the door opened with a creak, and Kang Jong-bo came in asking if Goyong was okay. His childhood friend Goyong was still nervous and said he was, and also asked Kang Jong-bo if he was okay. Kang Jong-bo said that he already remembered everything from the time the monster possessed him, all the bullying of Goyong and the way he had treated him. However, no matter how Kang Jong-bo treated him, Goyong continued to protect him. Lots of tears streamed down Kang Jong-bo's face as he thanked Goyong for that. Goyong went up to Kang Jong-bo and took him by the shoulder, saying that when he was bullied, Kang Jong-bo had also defended him. After all, they were friends, Goyong reminded him. Goyong also stated that Kang Jong-bo himself said that it was natural for friends to protect and take care of each other. Kang Jong-bo called him by name and asked if they could be friends again, as tears continued to fall from his eyes. Goyong answered with a smile and tears of joy in his eyes, saying that of course they never stopped being friends. Kang Jong-bo was shocked and stood still. Both boys were in tears, a moment so touching it might have actually melted Sojong's rigid exterior, almost. Sojong looked at them and thought how strange it was that they were happy just to think about being friends with a monster. She remembered a recent conversation with the old lady Bodhisattva. They had been sitting near a table with a tea set, both on pillows. The old lady Bodhisattva had stated that Sojong's mission was to protect Goyong, until the monster devourer Myeok-guisat inside him became stronger. Sojong had admitted she didn't quite understand. She suggested that if the monster devourer was so important, it might be better to lock him up and feed him instead. Releasing him could lead to another disaster just like before. The old lady Bodhisattva leaned over, confirming there was logic in Sojong's words. However, she cautioned the monster devourer Myeok-guisat can digest what it hates. The old lady Bodhisattva took the teapot and carefully poured tea into the cup, saying that if Goyong, her vessel, started to hate humans, he could become an enemy of humanity instead of a monster. The old lady Bodhisattva then handed the cup to Sojong, instructing her to care for Goyong so that he would remain on the side of the people. Sojong looked down at her tea and agreed softly, but she added that Goyong was still a monster. The older woman Bodhisattva replied that she knew about it and she understood, saying it brought back memories of Sojong she wanted to forget. However, her mission was not to protect monsters but to protect humanity. Her expression was firm yet persuasive as she handed the tea to Sojong. Sojong looked at it and was speechless. Then Sojong took the cup and agreed to follow this instruction and support the old lady Bodhisattva. She would protect the monster devourer, which meant protecting Goyong. Sojong confirmed to herself that it was true she was protecting not the devourer but humanity. She was now determined never to leave Goyong wherever he went as she clutched her skirt. Sojong added that she would complete her mission, and although she did not desire this responsibility, she had no choice but to accept it. Suddenly, strange sounds began to come from Goyong's stomach, and he grabbed his sweater with both hands. Kang Jong-bo asked what happened to him, and Goyong said his stomach hurt again. And a cloud of brown smoke puffed out from the back of his pants. The 9 directions technique proving its ability to make any dramatic moment awkward. Goyong's face was strained and he announced that he urgently needed to go to the toilet. Sojong, unwilling to deal with the impending gaseous fallout, directed him to the men's room. Her face twisted in disgust at the brown smoke rising from Goyong's lower body, a common side effect of cosmic indigestion. Goyong exclaimed, looking at the toilet. He had defecated a human. Lying before him was the botanist, the very man whose body had once been possessed by the demon of lust. Sojong went inside and looked, confirming that a person was indeed coming out. Goyong jumped up sharply and said he was scared and that this was a men's room. Sojong said she didn't want to be there either, but because of the guy he defecated, she had no choice. She was still looking at the botanist, who lay unconscious. Suddenly his eyes moved. He opened them, looking scared, and asked how he got to this place. Nothing was clear. Sojong's foot immediately flew into him. She told him that he himself had given up being human and had decided to become a monster. Sojong was angry and her skirt rose from the high kick. The guy blushed and asked why she was treating him like that, begging her not to. Goyong, who was standing nearby, asked what would happen to him next. Sojong questioned the man on the toilet, asking why he seemed so fond of monsters. Then she turned to Goyong and explained that the Bodhisattva would be the one to judge and punish him. She added that the outcome was already obvious. Sojong still held the botanist's face down with her foot. The guy struggled and tried to say something, but she declared that the betrayal of all humanity was much more serious than the betrayal of nations and people. Therefore, Solung revealed that his punishment would be the death penalty. Dark and intense energy swirled around the angry Solung. Growing increasingly scared, the guy pleaded for the death penalty, a desperate request that only fueled Solung's suspicion. Keeping her foot firmly on his face, Solung reached into the inner pocket of her shirt. She explained that they would not judge him right away, as he was the only person who had met the Hell Demon in person. The guy was still sitting on the toilet in his underpants, and right away, Solung took out a yellow piece of paper with red writing and stuck it onto the guy. His eyes rolled back. She said the talisman was a magical sign that would compel him to reveal everything he knew, and his interrogation would be conducted personally at the headquarters following that incident. The guy with the yellow paper on his face began to talk, revealing that the Hell Demon had long hair and ate people. The scene shifted to the headquarters of the EHU, or Exorcism Humanity United, a world union of exorcist association created 300 years ago after the initial crisis caused by the demons of hell. 8 people were sitting at a rectangular table, on which the botanist lay. The botanist kept mumbling as they were counting the onboard numbers. Among them was the old lady Bodhisattva. The council members, including the EHU Level 1 Exorcist, Chinok Bodhisattva, EHU Class 1 Exorcist Jinchuan, a guy with a katana and dark green hair, said that the child seemed to know too much information to the point of suspicion. EHU Class 1 Exorcist Susan, a woman in a nun's robe, said he was right. She felt like they intentionally sent the person to lure them in. EHU Class 1 Exorcist Kyohei, a guy in a hood and headphones while playing, said even if it was a trap, they couldn't just sit idly by. They had to eliminate the hell demon before opening the gate of hell. EHU Class 1 Exorcist Jamal, a man with tan skin and braided hair, said it was too dangerous. Another man beside him said they were waiting until the Myokwei-sa became stronger, the monster devourer Myokwei-sa. He also added that the strongest power of humans was science, not those monsters, a claim that earned him immediate side-eye. EHU Class 1 Exorcist Noah, a fat man with fluffy hair, interrupted him and said that most of the people in their conference had abilities unrelated to modern science, and added that he shouldn't talk about things that can be misunderstood. A man replied that it was not a misunderstanding and added that they would fight against monsters with unscientific methods. EHU Class 1 Exorcist Ivan, a middle-aged, pumped-up bald man in a white t-shirt, joined the conversation and asked the man if he was the guy selling the new car. He frankly said his ability was the most suspicious and questioned him if he had already fought against a monster. A man replied that both the electric car and the Mars migration plan were merely byproducts of research aimed at eliminating monsters. This man was EHU Class 1 Exorcist, Robert Neville. He told Ivan that if he were genuinely interested in the actual outcome of his research, he would show it now, while holding his wrist. Robert Neville grabbed his own hand and unhooked his wrist. A blue light appeared there. The structure on Robert Neville's wrist looked like a small mount. He admitted he was curious too. Suddenly his hand flew away from his body on a blue flame, and a powerful stream of light and wind rose in all directions. The man's eyes looked a little wild, and the blue light and the mount remained in his hand. He questioned whether their non-scientific abilities were beneficial. Robert Neville called the attachment on his hand a miniature neutron cannon. He showed that it combined sun missiles, artificial intelligence technologies, and an atomic missile strike. His detached palm, soaring across the room, curled into a fist and advanced towards the gathered individuals. He then declared that this was the future. Standing impeccably dressed in a suit and glasses, Robert Neville, with a fiery gaze, demanded to know the duration of their continued reliance on outdated superstitions in their battle against the monstrous threats. Ivan objected, thinking Robert Neville only sold cars but also made toys. Robert Neville's flying hand instantly struck Ivan, hitting him right on the cheek and causing him irritation. Robert Neville declared that he wouldn't kill him as the blue light was still striking on his hands. He added that he would simply make him feel the future in his own skin while holding his robotic hands. Noah approached Robert Neville, took his hand, and told them both to calm down. Noah added that it was not the time for fighting. The next second, Robert Neville noticed that the two of them were standing in a field with snow-capped mountains in the distance. Then Robert Neville exclaimed that it was Noah's supernatural ability, teleportation. Noah confirmed it and said there was no better place to cool off his head than the North Pole, a statement that made perfect sense considering the sudden aggression. Robert found it curious, calling it an essential skill for the Mars migration project. He looked around in admiration, but Noah corrected him that his ability could only teleport to places he himself had been. Suddenly, the walkie-talkie in his hand told them to return immediately, because Robert Neville had hit Ivan. Noah told Ian to calm down and asked Robert Neville if he really wanted to kill Ivan because he had been splashed with his blood. Small mushroom sprouts began to appear on Robert Neville's body, looking like an unsettling fungal growth. A wave of shock washed over him as he exclaimed at the sight of the peculiar mushrooms. Noah explained that Ivan had an ability that utilized mushrooms. There were fungal spores mixed in his bloodstream. Robert Neville wondered how interesting this was, but asked if it was really possible to talk about their abilities so openly. Noah said it was likely because his teleportations and Ivan's mushrooms were only a part of their full abilities. He added that Robert Neville had also deliberately provoked them to see their skills. The man laughed, saying this was some kind of superpower again and wondering if it was mind reading. Noah replied that it was always clear, even without mind reading, and could be seen in their eyes whether their determination to fight was accurate or not. Noah didn't have time to finish the question when the radio interrupted him, urgently demanding that he return Robert Neville, as Ivan was going to blow him away to Mars. Noah stood and asked Ivan if they could eat something while he calmed down, suggesting there were good ramen restaurants in Osaka. The large building with its panoramic window glistened in the sun's rays. A distraught male voice claimed that for a whole year, while his body was under the control of the monster, his academic performance went to waste. Kang Jong-bo looked at his report card and practically cried. He despaired, saying that now he couldn't even outrun that freak. Then Kang Jong-bo, clenching his fists, radiated a little despair. Goyong walked next to Kang Jong-bo, also holding a poor report card. He noted that he hadn't spent much time studying in middle school either. Kang Jong-bo dismissed it, saying it was all because of the monster. Kang Jong-bo declared that he knew nothing about books and would still become a pro gamer. Goyong suggested they go to the PC room after school. Kang Jong-bo challenged him, asking if Goyong, his childhood friend, thought he could challenge him. His friend Goyong replied that he had grown his skills a lot in 1 year, a surprisingly mild claim considering he momentarily housed a king of hell. Everything at school seemed to have returned to normal. Students nearby questioned Kang Jong-bo, asking if this was a new way to bully Goyong. The children who had been bitten by the monster teacher, turning them into monsters, could not remember anything that had happened. Kang Jong-bo smiled, even laughed, and suggested the loser of their gaming match would pay for the tteokbokki. Kang Jong-bo had also become entirely himself again. A guy walked up to them, asking what Kang Jong-bo was doing with Hole or Goyong. He suggested Kang Jong-bo should have a smoke with them and let Goyong go to the store and get them some bread instead. Kang Jong-bo exclaimed that they should not dare to treat Goyong like that. Goyong stepped in, saying it was okay. It wasn't difficult for him to buy a bun. Goyong smiled faintly, his voice calm yet chilling as he suggested giving him 200,000 won to cover the price of the bread. The bully stared at Goyong in disbelief, stunned by what he had just heard. The boy standing beside him muttered that Goyong had completely lost his mind. With a smirk, Goyong answered in a sharp, sarcastic tone, saying he wouldn't demand anything more. 200,000 won was all he wanted, just as payment for the errand. The bully suddenly grew both furious and frightened, not because of the price but because of Goyong's calm audacity. He shouted in disbelief, demanding to know what kind of bread could cost 200,000 won. Suddenly, the bully blurted out that it was incredibly cheap. In a panic, he bowed quickly and stretched out his hand, offering his card, a few coins, and a crumpled bill, his face pale with fear and desperation. From the crowd that had gathered, some students shouted that the bun from the shop really did cost 200,000 won, claiming they must have all gone insane. Hearing this, both of Goyong's classmates dropped to their knees and bowed deeply, their voices trembling with gratitude as they thanked him repeatedly. A weak and ordinary person who a monster devourer had consumed began to meticulously follow the devourer's words because of the fear it instilled in their subconscious. His classmates continued to bow before Goyong, their eyes filled with awe as if they were standing in the presence of a god. Goyong then asked what kind of bun they wanted, and the two hurriedly replied that they preferred a hamburger and some chocolate chip cookies. But Goyong firmly denied their request, telling them they would only get plain white bread without any drinks. Someone came up from behind and suddenly grabbed his buttocks. Goyong turned around and saw a dark-haired girl with open eyes, her eyes wide open in shock, and Goyong asked her what she was doing. The girl looked up at him, her face becoming surprised at what she did. She wore a short skirt, a t-shirt, and a school uniform. She stammered nervously, pointing out that it was Goyong's buttocks, while Goyong simply stared at her in confusion, unsure of what she was trying to do. She went on, accusing him of showing off and swaying his hips from side to side, claiming that was why she had tried to torment him like that. Tears welled in her eyes and a faint blush colored her cheeks as she spoke. Her emotions caught somewhere between anger and embarrassment. She turned around and ran back, shouting that he should not dare rub his nose in it, otherwise she would drive him to his grave. The guy standing in the girl's way jumped back and shouted that she was a pervert. She tore down the corridor, a high-pitched shriek preceding her as she demanded that everyone clear her path. A student suddenly shouted in surprise, asking what had happened to Jimin. She had touched Goyong's butt. The guy sitting beside him frowned and wondered aloud if she had eaten something weird. Kang Jong-bo and Goyong both turned their heads toward Jimin's direction, watching her dash away in embarrassment. Goyong let out a sigh and told everyone to keep quiet. Jimin stopped somewhere as her chest rose and fell as she tried to catch her breath. Sweat trickled down her temples, her mind still spinning from what had just happened. Jimin stood near the brick wall behind the school, her heart pounding and her face flushed a deep red. She couldn't believe what she was feeling. It was unreal, almost absurd. She muttered to herself in disbelief, insisting that it couldn't possibly be because of that hole. Her eyes were clouded with confusion as she asked herself why. But the moment she recalled the shape of his lips and the sight of his back, her heart began to race wildly, thundering in her chest like it was about to burst. The robot Neville's separate hand lay on the table, showing a middle finger, a silent technological commentary on the absurdity of human teenage emotion. While it was mounted, a faint blue glow began to emanate from its base, pulsing softly like a heartbeat in the dark. It slowly rose into the air, casting a gentle blue light across the table as its glow grew brighter and steadier. The robotic hand floated in the air, its fingers wiggling playfully like a dog wagging its tail, as it hovered and spun slowly. The hand eagerly floated toward Robot Neville, almost trembling with excitement, as if overjoyed that its master had finally returned. Ivan looked at Robert Neville and Noah with a puzzled expression, asking where they had been and why they were only returning now. Noah simply replied in a calm tone that they had stopped by Japan for a while. Ivan was angry, his face tense and red as he called Robert Neville an unlucky bastard. Ivan shouted, promising that he would soon beat him up. Robert Neville, straight and unafraid, handed Ivan a box of takoyaki, as he had heard Ivan liked it, calling it a gift as an apology, which was a surprisingly sweet, if unorthodox, peace offering. Robert Neville explained that with this incident he had deliberately provoked the EHU leaders to test their skills. He added that they had astonished him, just as he had expected, as he humbly apologized. Ivan gritted his teeth in anger as he asked Robert Neville if he had really tested them as recruits, while a takoyaki hung close to his mouth. Ivan accepted the gift but snapped that it did not change the fact that Robert was still a shameless freak. Jinshin cut through the tension, his voice sharp and commanding as he brought the room to silence. He said they needed to decide what to do with the Hell Demon before it was too late. He said they should discuss whether to expel her immediately while she was still slightly weakened, or wait until the monster devourer became strong enough. The urgency in his voice made everyone tense, realizing the danger of hesitation. The people at the table began to doubt. Jinshin stated his opinion was unchanged. The longer they waited, the stronger the demon would become. He added that eventually she would open the gates of hell, and there was no time to wait for the monster devourer to become stronger. He never looked away from his phone, continuing to play his video game as if he wasn't listening, a habit that made his serious opinions hard to take seriously. Susan agreed, saying they didn't know for sure how much more powerful the new vessel of the monster devourer, Goyong, could become. Noah asked what would happen if they lost. He also pointed out that if they made a mistake, they would be the ones to give her the missing energy to open hell. The older woman, Cheonak Bodhisattva, added that everything was the same 300 years ago when the exorcists united their forces and fought the Hell Demon. Her face became serious, and memories suddenly flashed in her eyes. It was 300 years ago, and tears had been flowing from the young girl's eyes. A helmet lay on the ground with a skull inside, and a human hand still clutched a sword. At the beginning of that war, there were chances to win, but every time the exorcists were eaten, the Hell Demon became noticeably stronger. Priests lay among the corpses, one clutching a book and a cross. The young Cheonak Bodhisattva was afraid and screamed, stretching out her hand with the yellow paper, or a talisman, forward. As a result of the war, the number of Hell Gates reached 665. The red inscriptions on the Hell Demon's stomach lit up again. The Hell Demon, hovering over the corpses of mutilated people, had wanted to eat them all from the very beginning. This prompted people to carry out a large-scale punitive operation. The faithful Cheonak was left standing alone before the Hell Demon. The Hell Demon licked her lips, asking if she was left alone. She explained that by eating her, the demoness would be able to open the gates of hell. Her eyes became wilder. The young Cheonak Bodhisattva began to draw a small dagger. She sharply raised her hand and swung it, trying to pierce herself, but at that moment, the Hell Demon's hair grabbed her hand and immobilized her, raising it. The young Cheonak Bodhisattva dropped the dagger as the Hell Demon spoke with a chilling calm, asking if she would not die of her own will. She was terrified, tears streaming from her eyes. The Hell Demon gloated that the girl's life was already hers. The Hell Demon sneered and said that since she called herself Cheonak, she must possess immense essence. With cruel certainty, the Hell Demon believed that Cheonak Bodhisattva's energy would be enough to open the gates of hell. Her eyes gleamed with hunger as the air around them pulsed with dark power. Her hair glowed pink, wrapping around the girl's hand as she closed her eyes in pleasure. The young Cheonak Bodhisattva, her eyes brimming with tears, said that she shouldn't be devoured too. Her voice trembled as she tried to stand firm against the demon's overwhelming presence. The fear in her heart clashed with the light of her faith that still burned within her. The young Cheonak Bodhisattva mentally prayed for salvation, asking someone to save her so that if she were swallowed, the gates would not open. Suddenly, someone tore the Hell Demon's hair, and the girl fell. The man who did this came up next to her and asked if she was okay. Tears flowed from her own eyes. The man wore a blue robe, a hat, and hanging jewelry. He apologized, saying that if he had come even a little earlier, perhaps no one would have died, as his tears also fell to her cheeks. Just before the gates opened, he had arrived. The young Cheonak Bodhisattva asked who he was. He said that the original name of the resurrected one was Hong Guang Yu, while he still held the young Cheonak Bodhisattva. But he also added that he was now the one who devours monsters, spits them out, transforms, and fights. He stood as the most powerful vessel of all, unwavering and resolute. Both of them faced the Hell Demon in the sky, their eyes fixed on the darkness above. One of his eyes burned with rage, glowing like fire as his anger surged uncontrollably. His voice thundered through the air as he declared his name with fierce pride, calling himself the monster devourer, Hong Guang Yu. Hong Guang Yu turned to the young Cheonak Bodhisattva and said it would be difficult for him to protect her and fight the monster at the same time. Therefore, she should go to a safe place. The young Cheonak Bodhisattva calmed down and asked what he was talking about. She insisted she would fight alongside him. She added that as long as the Hell Demon was there, there was no safe place. Hong Guang Yu suddenly opened his mouth and pulled the girl in, eating her. He apologized for his impoliteness, his voice calm yet chilling. He declared that the safest place now was within his stomach, a solution that was both terrifying and undeniably effective. As the beads from his hat scattered to the ground, his eyes glowed with an eerie yellow light that pierced through the darkness. The Hell Demon was firmly convinced he was the monster devourer. However, she questioned with disbelief why the very monster who had devoured King Yomara and been cast out of hell would now choose to side with the people. Her voice trembled between fear and confusion as her eyes fixed on him, searching for a reason behind his impossible choice. Hong Guang Yu rubbed the sleeve of his robe over his mouth. While the hell demon was still looking at the monster devourer, she exclaimed that she realized there was still a human soul left in him. Hong Guang Yu shot a sharp, piercing gaze at the hell demon while wiping his mouth clean. His single eye still burned with a fierce yellow glow, flickering like living fire. The hell demon stared in shock, her eyes wide with disbelief as she struggled to comprehend what she was witnessing. She demanded to know how such a thing was possible, why the devourer had not completely taken over his body. The devourer's hat flew off in the wind and he said they had agreed. A stream of blue flames shot out from the back of his body and he flew up. The hell demon's expression darkened with suspicion as she leaned forward. She asked once more if there was a contract binding them together. Hong Guang Yu answered calmly, his tone steady and resolute. He explained that the deal was simple. He had to leave his soul behind, and in return, he would be granted the freedom to devour monsters until his hunger was finally satisfied. Hong Guang Yu flew toward the hell demon. She did not take her eyes off him, floating in her hair. Meanwhile, Chunak Bodhisattva said she didn't get to see the battle between Hong Guang Yu and the hell demon in person. The young Chunak Bodhisattva found herself in an impossible place. She began to open her eyes and asked what kind of place this was. It felt as though she were floating in the vast emptiness of space, weightless and suspended in silence. In truth, she was inside Hong Guang Yu's stomach, a boundless void that seemed to defy all sense of reality. However, in that place a hole appeared in the sky, showing people. Most likely it was a mother holding her son, whose head was bandaged to her chest. Chunak Bodhisattva was able to see Hong Guang Yu's memories. The woman gently cradled the frail, emaciated boy in her arms. His body was light as if life itself had nearly slipped away, and her eyes filled with sorrow as she looked down at him. Then Hong Guang Yu stood over them, his massive form trembling as tears streamed down his face, in a broken voice mourning that they too had perished. In a low, trembling voice, he murmured that in that place they could eat as much as they wanted, anything their hearts desired. A man bowed before them and folded his hands in prayer. Behind him was a girl who was also praying. He hoped they would be reborn in a heavenly paradise. Hong Guang Yu was the governor of the village. Tears streamed down Hong Guang Yu's face as he spoke of the suffering that plagued the land. People were starving to death from famine, their cries swallowed by the endless hunger of the earth. Even those desperate enough to venture into the mountains in search of food fell victim to prowling predators, especially the tigers that ruled the wild. On the grass lay the mutilated arms, legs, and the head of a man who had been attacked, his eyes still open in terror. At that time, Hoseian was experiencing a period of severe famine. To make matters worse, tigers had suddenly appeared in Hong Guang Yu's district and began to attack the population. The woman nearby called out to Hong Guang Yu, their leader, telling him not to lose hope, as the people looked to him as the head of their district. Hong Guang Yu's tears flowed freely, yet his face remained a mask of defiance as he declared that it did not matter if he was the head, or even the king, as there was absolutely nothing he could do. Truly nothing at all. He added that the heavens had turned their backs on them, and resentment burned deep within his heart. His voice trembled with fury as he clenched his hand tightly into a fist, veins straining beneath his skin. At that desperate moment, a voice spoke, stating that it was useless to blame the heavens. A cloaked figure entirely obscured by a brown cape materialized beside Hong Guang Yu. The man's form was indistinct, his eyes and body hidden from view. He spoke, uttering that heaven initially did not concern itself with the affairs of humankind. Hong Guang Yu stood up and looked at the man, asking who he was. The man replied that time would pass and he would find out, but for now he should take something. He handed Hong Guang Yu an egg in his palm. Hong Guang Yu questioned the presence of an egg, his hand extending as he pondered the unexpected offering. With a cryptic smile, the man placed the object into the recipient's hand, declaring it to be their fate. Hong Guang Yu gazed intently at the egg, and he questioned if this was truly fate. The man's chilling affirmation of merciless fate hung heavy in the air, leaving Hong Guang Yu's features twisted in a mask of profound incomprehension. He looked forward and realized the mysterious man was no longer there. He relentlessly questioned his wife, seeking every detail about the man's vanishing act and whether she had witnessed it. Her reply sent shivers down his spine. A simple negative, followed by the unnerving revelation that the man appeared to be nothing more than a specter. Hong Guang Yu looked at the egg. He mused that the man had suddenly appeared and spoken about his fate. Nonetheless, he was grateful for the egg during such a famine. The egg was held in a metal cup. He told his wife to eat quickly, as she was exhausted. They sat in the lotus position in a spacious room, the only object between them being the cup with the egg. The woman asked if he had cooked it, noting that the man called this egg his destiny. Hong Guang Yu looked at her and said he was apparently destined to eat this egg. Indeed, who would ever bother to cast a glance upon such a peculiar so-called magic egg? He told her to move closer and said he would break the shell on her forehead and crack it open. A deep blush bloomed across the woman's cheeks as embarrassment washed over her. She stepped forward, wondering aloud what he was doing in such an intimate manner. Her hand reached out to gently push the egg away. Hong Guang Yu asked why she was embarrassed, assuring her he was just going to crack an egg and open it. He pulled the egg closer, hitting her forehead with it. The woman exclaimed that he had not approached her like that for a long time. A wince of pain crossed her face and she leaned back, clutching her forehead. Hong Guang Yu's voice, laced with worry, inquired if she was all right. She simply affirmed that she was. The woman gently held his head, a faint smile forming on her lips as she spoke softly to him. She remarked that it was an incredible egg, so hard like a stone. Hong Guang Yu looked at the egg and asked if she spoke of a stone, wondering if that was possible. The girl laughed, took the egg, and asked if he thought she was telling the truth. She hit his forehead with the egg. It also became excruciating for him. Hong Guang Yu bent down, clutching his head in agony as the pain throbbed sharply. The woman just laughed and said now he realized that she was right. Hong Guang Yu agreed, saying it felt like he had hit a corner. They looked at the egg once again, and Hong Guang Yu said he's not sure if it's destiny or something else, but one thing was sure, he couldn't eat it. Hong Guang Yu wished to give the egg to his wife, but she only smiled softly, her eyes filled with warmth. She told him it was all right and that because of him she had laughed out loud for the first time in a long while. Hong Guang Yu's wife said that fate seemed to have prompted them not to eat but to laugh. She was still smiling. Hong Guang Yu also laughed, agreeing with her. Until his wife became serious and said truly and surely one day this hunger would end and the days would come again when people laughed every day. Sadness and disappointment lingered in their eyes. Hong Guang Yu said he wished it would be as she told them their fate would be. One such day, 3 men, carriers with loads on their backs and sticks, came to the village. The 2 who carried the bulk of the load wore simple white clothing. The shortest man standing next to them wore purple fabrics and a beautiful Korean-style hat, indicating he came from the royal court or government. Hong Guang Yu looked at them in surprise, asking if the food assistance was indeed proper, as he had heard that the distribution of rice had long since ended. The small man, a merchant, said the government had sent them because they had heard that the rice had run out quickly. He added that the government considered the pitiful people and ordered them to distribute it to them, but if they don't need it, they could give it to another village. Hong Guang Yu's face immediately contorted with worry. He vehemently denied the accusation, exclaiming that people were literally dying of hunger in that very place. With a strangely crazy smile, the merchant declared that they needed to hurry up with the distribution. The merchant commanded Hong Guang Yu to call for all the people and emphasize that it should be everyone. He added ominously that everyone should be invited without exception. Hong Guang Yu agreed and hurried to call everyone. His wife laughed, saying she's so glad and relieved. Hong Guang Yu nodded and admitted she was right. They had long since given up hope that the government would offer any help, and now it seemed her words about his fate, to laugh despite it all, had come true. A faint, weary smile crossed his face, carrying both irony and acceptance. His wife replied with a gentle smile, saying that Hong Guang Yu's sincerity had surely reached the heavens. She believed that heaven itself must have heard their prayers. After some time, all the residents of the county had gathered, and a whole crowd assembled. In front were the 3 palace carriers with the rice, and behind them, Hong Guang Yu and his wife. The villagers shouted with hope for salvation. They were running out of food, and this rice meant the difference between survival and starvation. A woman held her baby close, tears in her eyes as she said she could finally feed him. People jostled, anxious for the food. There was also a man with his elderly mother. He told her to wait for a moment while he went to get some food, but the old lady insisted she was fine and that her son should eat instead. Suddenly, the man from the palace asked if everyone had already gathered. He exclaimed that if not everyone were present, he would not begin distributing the rice. Hong Guang Yu confirmed that everyone was present. He added that they had been starving for a long time, finding it hard even to stand, and urged them to start distributing the rice quickly. The man simply smiled at him and said that they could now begin as he untied his hat. His eyes began to change color to black and his iris turned green like that of a predator. He changed completely, becoming almost like a dragon. Though he still stood on 2 legs, his mouth elongated as his large body increased in size. He then bit off the head of one of the people in the crowd. Everyone was gripped by fear and didn't understand what had happened. The monster continued to eat people. Someone screamed and the monster devoured more people at once. It was a special class 4th grade monster, Dragon General. People were paralyzed with fear and shock, unable to run away. Suddenly a strange purple shape hit the resident. A man appeared, standing next to him, with purple skin and an octopus-like appearance. Many tentacles with mouths at the ends descended to the floor, but its head remained human-like. Instead of a neck, appendages appeared. This was a monster of the physical class, 4th grade monster, the 100-footed heron monster. Immediately, people started coughing up blood and some were pierced right through. Someone shouted to run, and everyone instantly moved. The 3rd person, whom they believed was sent by the government and had been with the carriers, also underwent a transformation, shocking the villagers as they witnessed it happen in real time. He struck a civilian with such force that the person's head was severed from his body, and the 3rd monster became a large creature with fangs and a horn on the top of its head. Its eyes were yellow, and its hands turned into wooden bats. It screamed, "Food," multiple times. It was the transformation class 4th grade monster, Bamboo Bat Goblin. Hong Guang Yu stared at the horrific scene, wondering if he was trapped in a nightmare, and questioning what it all could mean. A terrible picture unfolded before him. Monsters were eating people and screams of horror filled the entire village. General Dragon grabbed people's heads with his hands and did not let them go, eating them one by one. Panic spread and tears flowed from many villagers. Hong Guang Yu snapped back to his senses, realizing that it was not the time to lose focus. Hong Guang Yu looked at his wife and shouted for her to dash, but his wife was in shock and did not move, unable to understand what to do. The transformed monster advanced, roaring that they were not human. Without warning, a monstrous fist shot out from the right, aimed directly at Hong Guang Yu. The man slammed into the wall and fell to the ground. The General Dragon approached Hong Guang Yu's wife. She stood still, watching him. Hong Guang Yu lay on the ground, a huge abrasion on his cheek that would turn into a bruise. The capillaries in his eye burst and blood flowed from his mouth. His hair was disheveled. He looked at the monster standing before his wife and thought that his body would not move, no matter how hard he tried. Hong Guang Yu screamed in desperation. He should not touch her. He must not dare. His eyes flew open, bruised and trembling, as tears began to fall once more. Meanwhile, the Dragon General took his wife by the hand and brought her closer. The Dragon General stared straight into Hong Guang Yu's wife's eyes. Hong Guang Yu, filled with despair, wished that someone would help him and swore he would give anything in return. Tears streamed down his face as helplessness consumed him. Suddenly, an incomprehensible voice echoed, asking what he would ask for. Hong Guang Yu froze, his heart pounding, and wondered in confusion who that voice belonged to. In front of him lay an egg glowing blue, its surface shifting until a mouth with plump lips and sharp teeth appeared. It spoke and said, in that case, he should offer his body. It assured that it would grant him its strength and power in return. The egg's glow intensified, light bursting outward like waves, and from it a mask slowly emerged. Hong Guang Yu asked the egg who it was, his voice trembling with confusion. The egg calmly replied that it was a demon, and upon hearing this, Hong Guang Yu's eyes turned completely red in shock and disbelief. It also added that it was being chased for the crime of eating King Yom-ra. Light poured out and the outlines of a spirit glowing with a blue flame appeared, with a face but without eyes or mouth. The spirit said that he needed a body. The blue spirit then climbed into Hong Guang Yu's mouth and added that until his strength returned, he needed a place where he could hide. Hong Guang Yu had not expected that, but he obediently kept his mouth open. His eyes lit up and he thought that the spirit was getting into his mouth. A hand suddenly grabbed Hong Guang Yu's clothes from behind. The owner, a bamboo bat monster, asked if anyone was still alive there. He then asked his brothers, declaring that he would just eat the last person. The 100-footed heron monster asked why he hadn't eaten enough. He admitted that his greed and enormous appetite seemed to have no limits. The bamboo bat monster replied that the feast was set and prepared for them, and it would be rude to leave any leftovers, otherwise he would feel sorry. A surprisingly polite concern for a cannibalistic fiend. Suddenly, Hong Guang Yu grabbed the monster's hand and broke it. The monsters were stunned. Hong Guang Yu escaped the monster's clutches and ran to his wife. He shouted for the Dragon General to get his hands off her and let her go. And quickly, the Dragon General and his wife turned to face him. The 100-footed heron monster pinned Hong Guang Yu to the ground with its tentacles and asked who he was. Many tentacles with carnivorous mouths hung over Hong Guang Yu. The purple-skinned creature was incredulous as he exclaimed that creatures like humans should not be capable of breaking his younger brother's arm. So he asked Hong Guang Yu who he really was. As his tentacles pressed against Guang Yu's face, Hong Guang Yu's eyes began to darken as he commanded that the person be released quickly. The bamboo bat goblin monster roared, demanding that the one who dared to break his arm be held tightly. Using the unique ability of the bamboo bat goblin monster, which allowed the bat's shape and size to change freely, it swung the massive weapon toward Hong Guang Yu with lethal force. The bamboo bat goblin monster swung the weapon at Hong Guang Yu, screaming for him to die. Pinning him underground, the earth split into many faults. The 100-footed heron monster shouted that the bamboo bat goblin monster had almost torn off his legs. The bamboo bat goblin monster casually replied that losing a few was fine, that it wasn't even noticeable, and told him to calm down. Suddenly, the ground shook, and the bamboo bat goblin monster looked down. The earth split open once again. The beast didn't understand. Hong Guang Yu leaped out in front of him, holding a stone in his hand. His eyes were now black and glowing a yellowish hue. The bamboo bat goblin monster was confused and surprised that Hong Guang Yu was alive. At the same time, Hong Guang Yu flew over him and tore off half of his torso. The 100-footed heron monster cried out, calling for the youngest, but his gaze met only empty air. He thought the creature was too fast and he could not follow it. At that very moment, half of the leader's head was torn off and his tentacles flew down. The Dragon General shrieked that it was his second youngest. He shoved the woman away, witnessing his younger brother's tentacles scatter, splattering blood everywhere. Hong Guang Yu stood and ate the monster tentacles, perhaps not the most dignified victory celebration, but certainly efficient. The Dragon General asked who he was, still in shock as he witnessed Hong Guang Yu devour his brothers. Hong Guang Yu stared at him with burning anger, clutching a torn piece of the 100-footed heron monster's tentacle tightly in his hand. The Dragon General declared that he had to avenge his brothers since the creature had killed them. The Dragon General took a deep breath and released a large stream of flame from its mouth, which rushed toward Hong Guang Yu. This was the unique ability of the Dragon General, Dragon's Wrath Flame. The huge flames scattered throughout the village. The monster shouted for him to die, calling him a bastard too. A second later, the Dragon General's eyes opened in surprise. The Dragon General looked ahead and saw a giant bat, similar to his brother's bat. He immediately recognized it and realized it was his younger brother's unique ability. The Dragon General stood in front of it, but before he could react, Hong Guang Yu appeared behind his brother's bat and struck him with the bat, with his unique magic. The dragon was astonished by how Hong Guang Yu did it. Hong Guang Yu had the abilities of his second younger brother. Tentacles began to break out from behind the bat, which enveloped the Dragon General. He screamed in pain and finally remembered. The spirit that devours monsters can use their abilities, and it said that it even devoured Yamra, the great king of hell. His eyes awakened and he realized it was the monster devourer. A massive mouth of the monster devourer emerged before him, its gaping maw opening wide, ready to swallow him whole. The Dragon General's head flew straight into Hong Guang Yu's mouth, a surprisingly swift end for a fearsome monster. Many remains of tentacles and the corpses of people from the village lay on the ground. Hong Guang Yu's wife stood amidst the devastation, her voice initially lost to the shock of the carnage. Finally, she managed to muster her strength, a single question escaping her lips as she gazed upon the scene. Hong Guang Yu's gaze began to return to normal, the whites of his eyes turning white. Hong Guang Yu screamed, calling out for his wife and asking if she was all right. He approached her and took her by the shoulders. The woman was frightened, her pupils narrowed as she said everyone had been eaten. Hong Guang Yu's eyes welled with tears as he revealed a horrifying truth. Everyone in the county had been devoured, and monsters had consumed all the inhabitants, leaving only him to tell the tale. They were just trying to get a handful of rice as he held his wife's hands tighter. He added that it was all his fault, and he could not protect them. Hong Guang Yu then confessed that although he thought it was disgusting, he considered it great luck that so many people died. He began to droop, lowering his gaze and shoulders. He added that he thought it a great success and happiness that his wife was alive. His wife was in shock and could not utter a word. Hong Guang Yu continued his confession, saying he had no right to be the head of the district. He also thought about how hungry he was, as tears streamed down his face once again, and a voice inside him ordered him to eat quickly. His eyes began to darken again as he muttered to himself, trying to understand for a second. Veins appeared on his arms and he squeezed his wife tighter. A voice inside his head whispered the word devour. His wife looked at him in terror, her eyes widening as fear consumed her face, and the voice continued that his wife was a monster. Hong Guang Yu expanded his mouth almost a meter and tried to eat the woman, but suddenly he covered his mouth with his hands. Hong Guang Yu's voice boomed, proclaiming the person to be his wife. His eyes slowly turned white as he vehemently denied her monstrous nature. A voice inside him insisted that she smelled delicious and she's a monster. The voice inside him insisted that it was true. Hong Guang Yu glared furiously at his wife, struggling to hold himself back as he covered his mouth, trembling in resistance. Disappointment clouded her features as she voiced her discomfort, describing the sensation as painful. She flew above the ground, lamenting the dwindling population of the village. The hunger had taken its toll, leaving fewer and fewer souls to consume. Hong Guang Yu looked at her in shock. The woman continued that before moving to another village, she had wanted to feast there with her sworn brothers. However, she then met a monster like him. Her eyes became black like those of insects. Corn ears began to grow from her hair like horns, and wings appeared behind her, on which were, as it were, the souls of dead people. Her dress fluttered in the wind, and strange pollen appeared around her, glowing. She confessed a feeling of deep sorrow, a sentiment uttered by none other than the special class third-grade monster Phalaenopsis Moth Girl, Hong Guang Yu's wife. Such a cruel twist of fate. Hong Guang Yu looked at her and called out to his wife, asking what kind of appearance she was showing before him. The Phalaenopsis Moth Girl monster beat her wings as she released a glowing pollen on it and said she knew that there were monsters who killed other monsters, but for a monster to devour other monsters was foreign. She added that people like him shouldn't exist. She directed a considerable amount of light at him. A violent burst of fire exploded toward Hong Guang Yu, engulfing the surroundings in an intense blaze that illuminated the entire area with blinding light. This was the unique ability of the Phalaenopsis Moth Girl monster, known as the Grand Violent Fire Explosion. Suddenly, the Moth Girl monster was surprised as she looked down. Hong Guang Yu, with great speed and a beam of light, was heading toward her, his clothes disheveled and torn. The Moth Girl monster beat her wings with greater force, releasing a deafening cry for him to die. Golden rays of light burst forth from her wings, surging straight toward Hong Guang Yu. A relentless surge of blazing rays and flames poured from the Moth Girl monster's wings, engulfing the surroundings in searing light and heat. Then, a thick cloud of dust rose from the ground, swirling violently amid the chaos. At that moment, Hong Guang Yu suddenly sensed that something was strange, and tears began to fall from his eyes once more. The corpses torn to pieces by tigers appeared every day, and he remembered the picture with the bodies, but no one saw the tigers. When people died of hunger and everyone was becoming thin, skinny, and weak, Hong Guang Yu remembered the woman with the boy. He had also withered from the inside, completely dried up within. And again he thought about his wife, whom he considered the most beautiful in the world. The woman in his memories smiled and held a chrysanthemum in her hands. She was very nice. Hong Guang Yu continued to emit flames as he flew toward the moth girl monster. The moth girl monster asked if he had really survived such a decisive blow. She declared that she would now use all her powers and they would die together. She called the devourer and created a massive ball of light above her enormous explosive wings, which transformed her wings into immense explosive balls. This was the unique ability of Phalaenopsis Moth Girl Monster, the grand violent explosive fireball. It transformed her own wing into a massive ball of fire. Hong Guang Yu's eyes welled with tears as he lamented, expressing that the man had no desire to fight or kill her. She was after all his cherished darling. A voice inside commanded him to devour. Blue flames glowed on his hands. The voice continued to let him eat the monster. Hong Guang Yu's eyes turned black again, but the tears did not stop. A vast blue flash shaped like a face lit up around him, coming from his hand. Hong Guang Yu rushed toward the moth girl monster as she covered her face with her hands while still trying to control the explosive fireball. The demon rising from Hong Guang Yu's hand grew larger, spreading rapidly as it devoured everything in its path, including the moth girl monster's unique ability, the explosive fireball. The moth girl monster, still covering her face, wondered if he had eaten it. A blue flame with a spirit grew in front of her. This was the unique ability of the devourer, the 9 directions magic technique. It consumed enemy magic and utilized it for attacks. The giant sphere sank, destroying everything below with its field. A cloud of dust once again covered the ground, shrouding the battlefield in thick darkness and silence. The moth girl monster lay on the ground, with blood flowing from its mouth as it coughed. Hong Guang Yu stood next to her, tears flowing from one of his eyes. He looked at her with horror and disappointment. Her legs were no longer there, only her body with arms and head remained. She didn't say anything, but a voice inside Hong Guang Yu kept telling him to eat the monster. The moth girl monster began to cough and look at him, her eyes stopping white again, and a yellow light came out of her. She softly whispered, calling him darling, asking him to please listen to her. Her hand began to tighten as her nails grew long and sharp, as she muttered that there was a misunderstanding between them. She swung her hand sharply, letting out a piercing scream as she tried to strike Hong Guang Yu. Hong Guang Yu caught her hand midair, his face blank and emotionless, revealing nothing of what he truly felt inside. Memories flooded his mind when they walked through the park, holding hands. His wife said it was scary, afraid that someone might see them holding hands while she was holding a flower in her hand. The man only replied that it didn't matter if others watched, for she was his wife after all. Hong Guang Yu remembered that day. It had been exactly 1 year since they had become husband and wife. In his heart, he longed to lay all the treasures of the world at her feet, yet all he could offer was a simple wild flower, along with a quiet apology for it. His loving gaze rested upon her, while the girl's eyes were fixed on the yellow chrysanthemum she held delicately in her hand. She told him not to say such things, explaining that the flower was enough for her, more precious than all the treasures in the world. She added that even when they grew old, their hair turned gray, their backs bent, and their faces lined with wrinkles, the flowers would always remain a symbol of their love. His wife just smiled as she smelled the flower and said he shouldn't change, urging him to keep giving her flowers forever just as he was. Hong Guang Yu asked when it had started, tears streaming down his face. He added, asking since when this had taken over his wife's body as he looked down at the hands he held. The moth girl monster replied, suggesting he might guess, from the moment he bought her that pair of shoes at the market, or when he gazed at her with fascination while she rode the swing during the festival. She mocked him further, asking if he was confused whether it was on his wedding day or even during his wedding night. A ball of light was created where her wings had been and flew toward Hong Guang Yu. The moth girl monster said Hong Guang Yu was a fool. The moth girl monster continued, stating that she had been in that body before she was even his wife, and the ball of light got even brighter, shining on their faces. She said that from the beginning his wife was never there. Hong Guang Yu's one eye started to change into a demon eye once again. He screamed for her to die as a powerful force flashed in front of him, striking the moth girl monster. The attack hit her with devastating impact. One of her hands remained with Hong Guang Yu, and the other fell to the ground. Hong Guang Yu began to be covered with another membrane and only one eye remained. He screamed his heart out as tears streamed down his face, his body transforming into a monster devourer form. His mouth tightened and more tears continued to fall. The transformation of Hong Guang Yu to the monster devourer was complete. The voice inside explained that in order not to get caught by anyone, he did not completely take his body. However, whenever he does something reckless or encounters something tempting, he will use his body. The moth girl monster's hand on the ground began to evaporate. The monster devourer reminded Hong Guang Yu that if he lets him starve, he will consume his very soul. One of Hong Guang Yu's eyes remained teary as he stood in shock, trying to absorb everything that was happening, especially to his beloved wife. He looked closely at his wife's hand, resting in his, as the remaining part of her slowly dissolved. A tide of precious, heartbreaking moments with his beloved wife swept over Hong Guang Yu, dragging him back into the warmth of the past. He remembered their sacred promise, a vow that even when their hair turned to silver, their backs bowed with age, and wrinkles mapped their faces, he would still, always bring her flowers, and the most simple yet eternal pledge, that they would never let go, that they would always hold each other's hands forever. The radiant memory of his happy, beautiful wife appeared before him now, impossibly close, yet tragically beyond reach. Hong Guang Yu was violently yanked back to the brutal present as the monstrous, devouring shell of skin on his own hands began to evaporate visibly. The jagged, chitinous shell protecting his chest cracked and peeled away in sheets, shattering to finally reveal the true human nature of Hong Guang Yu beneath. The broken fragments of the monster's armor lifted from the ground and vanished, dissolving into the air above him as he stood rigid, transfixed by the transformation of his hands. As the monstrous hand shrank, a haunting memory asked if allowing the hunger back would consume his essence. He bit down hard on his own lip, the coppery taste of blood a fierce answer as he whispered a vow to the fading terror. He promised that such a dreadful event would never unfold again. Hong Guang Yu clenched the newly freed flesh of his fist into a weapon and declared his terrible purpose. He would now go out and chew and swallow every last monster that infested their world. His eyes became twin points of searing hatred and blinding rage. He grit his teeth and balled his fists with a desperate, crushing strength, even as the hot, silent river of tears continued to stream down his face. He stood in the middle of a wasteland. There was not a single living soul around. The young Chanok Bodhisattva continued to gaze at Hong Guang Yu's memories. Tears were flowing from her eyes. She truly sympathized with him. Suddenly, a red light came on above her. She slowly opened her eyes, drawn by the sound of someone nearby. Suddenly, she had returned to the present. The young Chanok Bodhisattva asked where she was. Hong Guang Yu told her that it was all over, having already eaten the hell demon. The young Chanok Bodhisattva looked at him, noticing his missing arm below the elbow, part of his torso gone, and his disheveled hair, yet he remained calm. The young Chanok Bodhisattva asked him if he was okay. Hong Guang Yu said that his body belonged to a monster, so that it would recover on its own. The young Chanok Bodhisattva put her hand on his chest and said she wasn't talking about his body. And she made herself clear that she was talking about his heart, her own eyes brimming with tears. The young Chanok Bodhisattva insisted that his heart was not a monster. They were sitting in a vacant lot, surrounded by many craters from their blows. Returning from her memories, the old lady Bodhisattva recounted that 300 years ago, at that very moment, many exorcists had perished while confronting the hell demon. She added that if it weren't for Hong Guang Yu, this world would have long ago become hell. Everyone present was still seated and gazing at the man on the table as they listened to Chanok Bodhisattva. She declared that they should give themselves 1 month. The other exorcists only looked at her. This was to match the past of Hong Guang Yu. One man placed a red package on the floor and the old lady thanked him, saying it must be tough. 2 men, one taller with short dark hair and the other smaller with relatively long blonde hair, stood near the entrance. The older woman said that if it weren't for them, she would have had a tough time. And that day, she thought she was lucky. She had successfully captured 2 men who possessed an abundance of energy. The demon, she thought, would surely commend her efforts. The 2 men, one wearing glasses and the blonde man in a suit with his hands in his pockets, were looking down the corridor. A woman's voice asked what they were. The old lady said she caught them especially for the hell demon. The hell demon, in a short white dress, looked at the men with absent-minded disappointment. She asked where the old lady found such strange ones. They were not people, but monsters. The old lady started to question her, but suddenly, a hand clasped her neck. The blonde man, who had his hands in his pockets, smiled and said that, as expected, the hell demon was very smart. As the representative of the first-class monsters, he said he came here to meet the hell demon. He introduced himself as Dracula and said he heard that she's trying to open the gates of hell. The hell demon simply turned its head, the unfathomable depths of its gaze meeting his with serenity while his arms crossed. The blonde man politely stated that not all monsters crave chaos. He added that the first and second classes valued order and asked her to drop the idea of opening the gates of hell. The hell demon laughed, saying his class did not matter to her. She scorned their fear that if the gates opened, monsters of the major league would enter the world. She continued that they would be reduced to dragging out a miserable existence, dragged out as slaves to those superior monsters. She spat, her finger glowing purple as she pointed it at him, declaring that people simply had one word for individuals like him: a nerd. The man next to Dracula grabbed the old lady monster by the neck. He began to turn into a wolf, telling her to be polite to the count. This was a monster of the physical class. Second-grade monster, werewolf. The werewolf asked to go ahead to the demoness, but the goblin monster, who had been standing behind the hell demon, rushed in front of her and shielded her, blocking the blow. The moment their knuckles slammed together, the impact didn't just hurt, it created a palpable humming tension like a guitar string pulled impossibly tight. The werewolf's sheer primal strength proved instantly superior, and with a sickening crunch, he shattered the goblin monster's arm. Dracula just smiled and stated that he had monsters of the first and second classes on his side, and that she wouldn't be able to do anything against them. They were much stronger. He reiterated his demand to abandon the idea of the gate. The hell demon began to emit an even stronger violet color. She called him a loser and noted that he truly enjoyed the classes, which had been divided into groups. She challenged Dracula and said if he was so confident in himself, then let him go forward. Her hair began to rise and grow stronger, brushing against the ceiling. A flash of razor-sharp amusement crossed Dracula's face as he assessed the demon's tangled crest of hair, before stating smoothly that he intended to resolve that conflict with educated, sophisticated finesse. Half of his face became covered with bats, and his eyes turned red. Transformation class first-grade monster, Dracula. He explained that the man had been left with no alternative but to take her life. Dismissing all polite conversation, the hell demon's crest of hair became a sudden horrifying reality, a gigantic primal monster with immense hands that streaked toward Dracula's throat. Instantly, a thunderous flapping explosion of bats burst from Dracula's form, obscuring the space, and when the fluttering darkness cleared, only his torso remained floating above the waist. Goyong found himself standing inside a vast, cave-like place, knowing he had been in a school only a moment before. He tilted his head back, taking in the immense, strange space above him. Then, an echoing voice suddenly broke the silence, confirming the unsettling truth that he was inside his stomach. Goyong spun around, frantically searching for the speaker and asking if it was his grandfather, wondering where he was located. The voice then commanded him to look down. Suddenly, he saw Hong Guang Yu, settled serenely in the lotus position, his spirit gaze fixed intently upon Goyong. Goyong's eyes snapped wide with surprise, and he immediately questioned Hong Guang Yu, why he had shrunk so drastically. The elder spirit of Hong Guang Yu calmly explained that there was nothing to be surprised about because it was simply a natural phenomenon. He then added a chilling detail. The digestion process had only just begun. So Goyong's own spiritual form instantly recoiled and questioned the terrifying implications of digestion. Hong Guang Yu pushed past the fear and told him that something else was far more critical to discuss. He revealed that the reason he had called Goyong was that he desperately needed to communicate something crucial. Cutting to the core of the matter, he asked Goyong if he had ever encountered Chinook. Goyong dropped immediately to his knees, instantly connecting the name Chinook with grandmother Chinook Bodhisattva. But as he processed, he confirmed that he was right, and he frantically wondered what the beginning of the digestion process truly signified. Hong Guang Yu swiftly cut across his frantic questions, his voice urgent as he immediately asked Goyong for a favor. He stated his demand clearly. Goyong had to protect and help Chinook no matter what. He then added another layer to the request. If it was at all possible, Goyong also needed to protect him during the battle against the Hell Demon. He explained his vulnerability, saying he had become a pitiful person and did not wish to die as they pleased. Goyong then muttered that he understood, his own eyes showing a deep flicker of concern for Hong Guang Yu. Hong Guang Yu offered a word of thanks, immediately followed by the confusing statement telling him that after expelling the Hell Demon, he had to run away from Chinook. Goyong's confusion was absolute because he had been told to help Chinook, but now upon the defeat of the Hell Demon, he was ordered to escape. Suddenly, the dream broke, revealing that Goyong was actually asleep on his school desk. He began to stir, his eyes slowly fluttering open to the world. And there Jimin was standing directly in front of him, the very girl named Jimin, who had so recently pinched his buttock, now simply staring while her cheeks burned a bright crimson. He was so startled by her appearance that he immediately blurted out questions to Jimin, asking what was happening, and if she needed him to buy her bread, or by chance had 200,000 won. She stood frozen over him, her expression one of utter embarrassment as she held his direct gaze. The girl stood up sharply and said that she needed him after school today. Blushing even more, she folded her arms over her chest and added that he would take a walk with her. Goyong's face twisted in complete confusion, and he immediately asked, demanding to know why if she was actually going to hit him. Jimin fiercely rejected the thought, swearing she would never want that, but quickly insisted he must come along because she needed to check something urgently. Her inner voice was a silent scream. She had to check her own feelings because at the mere sight of this loser Goyong, her heart was beating madly, and it felt utterly absurd. Goyong slowly settled back onto his seat, tapping a finger against his temple as he asked what exactly it was she needed to check. He followed up, still suspicious, wondering if she really wasn't going to hit him. At his innocent question, the girl's heart began its impossible frantic drumming once more. Her face flushed dark, her eyes went wide with panic, and she silently wondered if she had actually lost her mind. She silently screamed, wondering what was wrong with her heart and when would it finally stop beating so hard. Spinning quickly to conceal her burning face, she issued a final severe warning. Regardless of his protests, he must see her after classes, or if he dared to run away, he would die. But before Goyong could answer, a completely new voice suddenly and strongly objected to Jimin's command, stating that he absolutely could not go with her. So-jung then appeared in the classroom, announcing that Goyong had something to do with her. Goyong's shock was instant. He recognized her immediately as the one he had encountered at Chainok Hall. Jimin's face flushed anew as she demanded to know what kind of business this was, her mind already racing to wonder if So-jung was suddenly a rival. So-jung replied with quiet authority that the matter was far more serious than Jimin could imagine. Her gaze hardened with an angry intensity, and she emphasized that this was a matter of critical importance. Jimin glared at So-jung and said she can't be serious because she still should hit Hole or Goyong first. Goyong turned to Jimin and pleaded, clasping his hands in a prayer gesture, insisting that this current task was genuinely critical, and asking her to postpone his confirmation and deal with her later. Jimin reacted with stunned disbelief to his plea and shot back, calling him crazy Hole. Goyong continued to plead with Jimin, apologizing repeatedly, but stressing that this was simply too important to ignore. Jimin remained visibly angry at him, but then her expression suddenly shifted. Jimin finally conceded, stating that if he didn't want to lose his skates, he would have to make time for her the next day. A question echoed in her own mind as to why everyone listened and obediently followed that bastard's words. Moments later, So-jung and Goyong were standing together on a rooftop, surrounded by a canyon of looming tall buildings. So-jung delivered the grave news, announcing that the EHU had issued instructions and they were given an extra month to exorcise the Hell Demon. Goyong wondered if that time frame was enough for them to do it, so So-jung quickly dispelled any notion of speed, clarifying that it was not fast at all, and emphasizing the lurking danger of the Hell Demon, capable of absorbing individuals at any given moment, poised to tear open the very gates of hell itself. So-jung then informed me that he must eat monsters for a whole month, beginning with the 4th level and relentlessly progressing to stronger ones, until he finally possessed the strength to defeat them. Goyong stared at So-jung, his eyes wide with shock, demanding to know what 3rd level and 4th level she was talking about. So-jung seemed genuinely surprised that he was unaware of this basic knowledge, so she explained that the higher the class, the more dangerous the monster. So-jung continued, detailing that the monster classes ranged from 1st to 7th, and were roughly categorized into 3 main groups. The weakest threats were those in the levels 5 to 7, as these monsters possessed no unique abilities, relying solely on physical strength or the most basic magic. They were typically referred to as miscellaneous monsters, such as the Bakso or the monster dog Jin. The intermediate threats were those in the levels 3 to 4 because these intermediate monsters could utilize a unique ability, such as the Demon Teacher or the 2 demons who resided on it, Byung and Jung. Furthermore, depending on the specific unique magic spell, they could sometimes demonstrate combat power even higher than their level. She clarified a critical distinction, explaining that the level represented the degree of danger based on human standards, not their raw combat power like the demon monster. Then the strongest threats were those in the levels 1 to 2, because the vast majority of these supreme monsters possess widely recognized names and were already well-known entities. Goyong's eyes widened in surprise as he asked if they had names. So-jung confirmed this and told him names like Dracula, Nine-Tailed Fox, Werewolf, Zombie, Mummy, and many others. She unveiled the sinister secret of their power. These monsters, whose names were familiar from novels, comics, and movies, could constantly feed on the fear of the people who dreaded them all around the world. She gave an example of a boy watching a movie about Dracula, who experienced fear, and that fear immediately imbued the monster with power. A dark smoke of fear emanated from that moment, meaning these high-level monsters could grow stronger without needing to make any effort themselves. This constant fear-based feeding explained precisely why monsters of the 1st and 2nd levels were so notoriously difficult to defeat. Meanwhile, in the separate confrontation, a colossal monster was rapidly forming from the Hell Demon's hair, its massive arms stretching out for Dracula. The Hell Demon stood beneath the horrifying creation, her own eyes glowing red as a pulsating purple light engulfed the entire area. Simultaneously, a surging flock of bats began their assault on her, and the lower half of Dracula's body instantly vanished. Dracula called her out because everyone had praised her highly, but it seemed her brain had melted while she was trapped inside the devourer's stomach. In response, a secondary colossal hair monster, this one shaped like a smashing bat, was formed from her remaining hair and solidified in the Hell Demon's hand. Dracula continued his mockery, wondering if she wasn't ashamed to resort to such a technique. A vast, heavy monster, and how it would ever go to hit a small, fast bat. A cloud of his bats surrounded the lumbering monster, which flapped its massive arms wildly in a desperate attempt to ward them off. Dracula's body underwent a shocking hybrid mutation, and his torso and limbs became a towering monster, but the only element remaining of his former self was his human head. The massive hair monster brought its arm down with crushing force, hitting the ground and splitting it into fragments. The monster's huge hand, woven entirely of hair, opened wide, futilely trying to capture the swarm of bats surrounding it. It continued its desperate wild swinging, utterly unable to trap any of the flying bats. The sky turned red and the bats freely flew over the area, and Dracula declared his turn. Just before the light of the full moon, countless bats converged, weaving together to form the shadowy outline of one gigantic bat. Dracula's eyes glowed red, his mouth opened predatorily to reveal 4 huge fangs, and thick veins visibly pulsed all across his face. The Hell Demon's dull magic spell looked delicious, he hissed, and with that he directed his army of bats straight toward the monster. His bat subordinates immediately began to relentlessly slice away the hair monster's hands and tear a gaping hole right through its chest. This was Dracula's unique magic spell, Glutton Bats, which created 1,000 bat clones designed to chew and devour everything. The defeated hair monster began its slow, inevitable collapse, its huge hand landing with a heavy thud right next to the calmly standing Hell Demon. Dracula delivered his conclusion. Apparently, the status of the strongest hellish monsters like her had been lost, but his children had not. Dracula's eyes became angry, his smile widened further and his ears sharpened as he continued that they had relentlessly grown their powers by feeding on human fear for hundreds of years, and now monsters like her were simply no match for them. So Goyong noted that while these monsters consistently gained strength, the exorcists were certainly not sitting idle, watching the threat grow. Their work involved a massive effort to change the entire public image of these monsters, hoping that people would stop being afraid of them. As So Goyong detailed their strategy, she recalled that they systematically made people believe that monsters simply did not exist. They used the media to transform the horrific beasts into iconic, harmless caricatures, thereby cutting off their supply line of human fear. This was done so the powerful beings could no longer consume the fearful souls of humanity. So Goyong continued, stating that despite all their efforts, fear had simply been rooted in people's minds for far too long. Levels 1 and 2 monsters were now too strong and too formidable for the EHU to fight effectively. Goyong's voice was tight as he asked on what level the Hell Demon belonged to. So Goyong replied that according to their records, the Hell Demon was classified as level 1. But this classification was only an assumption based on fragments of data. It was not certain, she stressed, pointing a warning finger directly at Goyong. She delivered the chilling reason: the only person who had ever witnessed all the Hell Demon's unique abilities was Hong Guang Yu, the first monster devourer, and the implication clearly shook Goyong. Meanwhile, Dracula called out across the carnage, questioning the Hell Demon if this was truly the extent of her unique abilities. The Hell Demon stood calmly on the blood-soaked ground, meeting his gaze as her hair whipped dramatically in the sudden wind. She asked what nonsense he was talking about because she had not even begun to use her abilities yet. Dracula then shouted that it was just impossible nonsense. The Hell Demon calmly interrupted his fury, explaining that the hair creature was not her unique ability but merely a simple fleeting imitation of a goblin monster's shape woven from her hair. A terrifying transformation began. Her eyes bled from their standard color to a void of absolute black, her pupils narrowing into slits of demonic yellow, and as a chilling, utterly crazy smile cracked her face, she whispered the horrifying revelation. She had just fed him.